Hello everyone, welcome to another stream of Love, Money, Rock and Roll. We started playing this game yesterday and there's already a lot of stuff going on here. You know, there's me, the character I'm playing, the high school boy from Russia. There's 4 different girls that I think we can fall in love with. What's her name? Himitsu, the black-haired girl, the ex-GF, and Ellie, the rocker girl. I almost got their names right. I almost remembered them. And then there's like the threat of death hanging in the air. Like, my character could die at any time, it feels like. So there's a lot going on with this game right now. And I like it. Hey Mafia babe, how you doing today? It's good to see ya. Are you ready for more of this game? I know I am. You know what else I'm excited for? I'm excited for leaving the ramen shop. When I left the ramen shop, the lights of distant stars were already shining brightly in the sky, like small lanterns hanging above the clouds. I recalled stars in Russia being the brightest at the end of August. A cold, damp wind blew from the ocean. A cold, damp wind blew from the ocean. I shuddered, and my heart felt unbelievably heavy. Did this turn on just now? You alright? Excited for the game? Alright, me too. Maybe somewhere in the very center of Tokyo, the nightlife was still boiling, but my district usually fell asleep with twilight. The streets grew heavy with only stragglers hurrying home, where they were awaited by a loving family and a hot dinner, completely unlike me and my ramen. If only I hadn't had a fight with Himitsu today. But could you really call that a fight? No yelling, no dish breaking, not even any face punching. Only strained silence, unspoken words, and indecision. Yeah, exactly, indecision. I just didn't know how I felt about her. Especially now, after Catherine had returned. Accepting her love would be the easiest option, but wouldn't I only hurt both of us even more then? Who should I go for, by the way, Mafia babe? Out of all the 4 girls I've seen, who should I ask out first? That's the real question here. Would these feelings end up genuine, or would I just swap her from a housemaid to a lover? And in the end, Himitsu would simply end up hating me, as well as herself. But rational thinking is something to attempt with a clear mind. The empty house met me with a ringing silence and the cold of an autumn night. For a long while, I stood next to the phone, not thinking about anything in particular. Think you know your answer, but it's up to you. Alrighty. I'm just curious. I'm gonna guess Himitsu? I don't know what you would guess, actually. I don't know what anyone would guess. I don't know. No, but I most definitely wasn't going to call anyone. I was waiting for them to call me. The clock hands were nearing midnight. I looked outside, but her windows were dark. Why do I always do this? First push people away and then agonize over it? Finally, my tiredness seized me and turned out to be the deliverance I craved. That was being obvious. Oh, sadly, Mafia babe, I'm an idiot. I don't know what anyone guesses. Oh, Ellie. Ellie would be your choice. I gotcha. Well, we'll see. Ellie is the only rock and roll girl in this thing. So maybe we should go for Ellie. But we'll see, We'll see what the choices I choose bring me. Maybe we'll get a game over and choose no one, and then we'll get dead. Yay! I stretched out on the bed, closed my eyes, and immediately plunged into a pleasant state where you know you are about to fall asleep. Oh, look at this. The moonbeams through the window. Oh, beautiful. The end. That's it. Game over. Oh, okay. Next day. The art team did amazing. They sure did. Well done. Get up! Someone's voice was ringing in my head. It felt like I was being lobotomized. Get up, Nico-kun, get up! Well. If it isn't you. And once again, the sunbeams through the window. My gosh! I arduously opened my right eye. The pain abruptly jumped to the left half of my brain. Here you go. Himitsu let out a relieved sigh. But today's Saturday. I grumbled and turned to the other side. It's Friday. Get up. She started to shake me by the shoulder. Enough already. I finally grew sick of it and jumped out of bed. See, it wasn't that hard. Himitsu was smiling, as if everything was fine. Although, why would something not be fine? I looked at the clock. She was more or less keeping her daily regimen. So why did I feel so terrible then? Breakfast? You're not getting borscht today. She puffed out her cheeks just like a hamster. What's so funny? Nothing. You just look amusing. Himitsu blushed and her gaze started back and forth across the room. Yeah, amusing, like a little hamster. She stamped her foot, hissed, and left the room. Do hamsters hiss? Himitsu always looked funny when she was angry, but it was all mostly a game. She was used to hiding her true feelings and emotions, and even I couldn't say what she was thinking at any given moment. Later on the table was a traditional Japanese breakfast. BRB, alrighty. Alrighty, my friend. I reckoned it wasn't the best time to turn my nose up and pretend to be a gastronome, so I silently sat down and started to eat. Itakimasu! It's often translated to, I humbly receive, but in mealtime setting it's equivalent to, let's eat, bon appetit, thanks for the food, etc. So remember that, whenever you're starting a meal, just say itakimasu. Itadakimasu, that's how you say it. Himitsu said in a deliberate, serious tone. I snorted in response with my mouth full. Nico-kun, you don't pay attention to what's happening around you at all. What do you mean? You sleep like a log. What if someone were to break into the house at night and rob you? And what would they take exactly? I laughed, choked, coughed, and jumped up to get myself a glass of cold water. How would the thieves know? The house looks nice from the outside. Uh-huh. So you really think robbers pull off their jobs on a whim without investigating first? And how would they investigate? Well, I have no idea. Or do you think I earn side cash by robbing houses at night? Just that yesterday I saw a suspicious man nearby. A suspicious man? Yes, he was looking at something through your windows. You're back? Hey, welcome back. Well, apparently there was a man outside my house, Mafia Babe, looking through my windows. Remember that? Remember the threat of death over my head? We have to deal with that too, I think. I let out an incredulous sniff, which embarrassed Himitsu. Or maybe it was just my imagination. Of course, a lot happened over the last several days, but I couldn't just write everything off as schemes of the enemies of the people. Moreover, in this case, Himitsu seemed to just want some attention, and she had her reasons. I really had been ignoring her a lot lately. So what was so suspicious about this man of yours? I grinned. He's not mine. Himitsu stood up and started to furiously wash the dishes. Hey, I didn't finish the food. I tried to take back the bowl of miso. It was almost full. You don't like my cooking anyway. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Even had to get up from my chair to win back my rightful serving. The water flowed from the tap so strongly against the base of the sink and splashed everywhere. Soon Himitsu's school uniform grew wet, dark spots appearing here and there. Well, what do you think I should do? Go to the police? She didn't reply. I'm not saying it was your imagination, that you made it all up. It's just, real life is much more complicated. How would you know? She responded in a dull voice. It seemed like I shouldn't have been made fun of so stubbornly. I slowly got up, approached her, and hugged Himitsu from behind. Come on, sorry. I slowly whispered into her ear. Oh, I know. So cute. Nico-kun, don't. She tried to break free, but the attempt was reluctant, effortless, and though she wasn't sure if she really wanted to. These displays of affection weren't anything unusual for us. I didn't know how typical Japanese people would react to something like this, but Himitsu was used to it. And I was too, even more so. It was only lately that I had noticed something start to change in our relationship. Maybe it was due to Catherine's return, or maybe because the two of us just grew older, and the things trivial for grade schoolers started to gain much more meaning. Alright, let's go already or we'll be late. Nonetheless, I had absolutely no desire to make excuses. I let go of Himitsu and took a couple steps back. Fine, I'll just go change quickly. She replied as if nothing happened, pointing her at her soaked school uniform. I was standing outside, waiting for Himitsu. It was a typical morning for this part of Tokyo, nothing suspicious about it. Surely that was just her imagination yesterday, although the notes, the call, I suddenly felt uneasy. "Shall we go?" Himitsu stepped out of the gates and of her house in a clean, dry uniform. "Huh? Were we given multiple sets?" "Of course." "So I had a spare too?" "Of course you do. It's in the closet." Wanted to ask which closet she meant, but the words never left my mouth, and I felt an unbearable shame about my behavior today, and the way I treated her in general. "And here's that ramen place." We stopped near my favorite restaurant. Himitsu said, clearly not interested. "Want to go there sometime?" "Nico-kun, how many times have I told you?" "Well, it's just that you're always cooking, and this is for a change." There were so many thoughts swirling in my head the entire way, so many words sat at the tip of my tongue, and now I was mumbling something unintelligible. "Would that be a date?" she asked snarkily. "Well, yeah, I guess." It only made things worse. Himitsu blushed and lowered her head so much that it seemed like she was apologizing. "Fine, sometime." "Okay." I reached at the school almost in speed walk. Himitsu could barely keep up with me. "And we're back in school!" Woo! The class was even less crowded than usual, which came as no surprise. It was Friday, after all. Meanwhile, it's Monday today, in real life. But then, what was I doing here? "Hi." At least Kyosuke was right on cue. "Hey there, I guess. You look all gloomy early in the morning. Everything all right?" "Couldn't be better." I quipped and glanced around the class. "You wish it was Friday?" "I know." "Well, it will be soon, I guess." Catherine's desk was empty. Since the start of the morning, Himitsu was leading my thoughts away from her, either intentionally or unintentionally. But yesterday's argument and all of its details were still fresh before my mind's eye. And now of all times it seemed somehow important, especially important, like a battle between two terrible monsters from Greek mythology. "Have you seen Catherine today?" "No, why?" "No reason. I'm just asking." "Just asking, huh?" A disgusting smile spread from one of his ears to the other. "Yeah, exactly." I was trying not to react to the provocation. "Nick, we never talked about it, and it's been 4 days already." "Nothing to talk about." I was starting to boil up inside, but couldn't let another snap like yesterday's happen. "There's nothing to talk about because I know as much as you do." "Okay, but if you need anything..." "Of course, I know where to go." "Not you. Certainly not to him." I stood up and approached Michael, who, as custom had it, was reading a book. "Hey, remember yesterday's incident? I tried to look as friendly as possible." "Oh, remember we swore at him last time?" "We said like, bleep you, F you, but still not too friendly." He raised his head and gave me a slight nod. "How's it going?" "Depends on how you look at it." "And how should I look at it?" "Depends on what you mean." Kyosuke's anime philosophy wasn't exactly fun, but Michael's pretentious pseudo-Buddhism would drive anyone mad. "Alright, I see you're in no mood to talk. Wanted to ask if you've seen Catherine." "No." "I see. Thanks." There was no point in continuing the conversation. Of course, Michael wouldn't bombard me with questions, but he also didn't need to. He had other ways to dig into people's souls. I asked several more classmates to know her result. My vain attempts must have seemed strange from outside, but I didn't care. And everyone had long learned that they could expect anything from me. But the thought of Catherine was haunting me, because knowing her, left without a farewell, returned without a warning. What if yesterday's fight with Himitsu was the last straw for her? Naturally, she had to stay in Japan, but changing schools wasn't out of the question. I didn't even know where she lived. There was the possibility that she and her mother had returned to their old apartment, but I always thought there were no such happy coincidences in real life. But the school had to have information about her, home address included, which meant I could try looking in the teacher's room. I've been there many times and had a vague idea of where things were kept. On the other hand, it was the very peak of the school day. There was a high risk of being caught, and there was no guarantee I'd be able to find her personal file among the piles of paper. I was shuffling about stupidly, unable to make a decision. Meanwhile, there were just 5 minutes left until the bell. Ooh, go to the teacher's room, do nothing. Seems like a hassle. I'm gonna do nothing this time around. Catherine's cool, but I don't think I'm gonna do the Catherine route this time around. Fudge it. It was a stupid idea after all. No one would give me her address, and hoping for the teacher's room to be empty was even more stupid. I simply went to wander the school, and soon ending up in the cafeteria. The bell had already rung, so there was no reason to hurry to class. To kill some time, I bought a cup of green tea and a jelly bun. The cafeteria was empty except for one table, a girl sitting behind it. Looking carefully, I recognized Saya-chan, Himitsu's classmate and best friend. Any company's better than none. Who the heck are you? Hey there, you skipping too? I sat down across the table from her, lazily sprawling myself on the chair. No, Kin-san. Just call me Nick. I flashed her a disarming smile, but Saya seemed unaffected. We've got physical education now, and I strained my leg recently. What about you? Why are you here while everyone else is studying? Relax, I told you I'm skipping. Typical. Her blatant contempt was fighting against the code of conduct that demanded unconditional respect from those older than her, even if I was only older by a year. Well, thinking about it, she almost always treated me this way, and the reason for that was Himitsu. Saya was convinced I treated her badly, didn't respect and ignored her feelings. Unfortunately, she was mostly right. Oh, come on, don't start again. How's Himitsu doing, by the way? Are you really interested? No, of course not. I only saw her this morning. But what else am I supposed to say when you meet everything coming out of my mouth at night point? It's just your imagination. No, it's not. You're just convinced everyone should act exactly to your standards. That'd be nice. She grinned. Okay, I see you're in no mood to talk. Guess I'll go then. Why did you even come in the first place? To fight? I was already about to stand up, but in the end decided to achieve victory in this stupid argument. No, goddammit, to pick on you. Everyone else is studying, and there's no one else around. Is no one at all? Yes, no one at all. Don't be so full of yourself. You're just convinced you're right. So typical. I mockingly imitated her. Wow, Himitsu's really lucky to have you. Well, she's at least has someone. And what about you? Any man would drown you in your bile on the very first date. Saya's lips trembled. She was about to cry. Oh man, we're being a real gentleman today right now, huh? I had overdone it. Okay, sorry, but you started it. Now the girl looked completely miserable. After all, she was just a child and had probably never experienced any real difficulties. The theatrical arrogance and self-confidence were a protective mess to hide her insecurities. Unfortunately, you could hardly say the gods of Japan had gifted Saya with beauty. It's sometimes said that girls choose bad-looking friends to appear better in contrast. I wasn't sure if Himitsu ever thought about this, but the fact remained. Alright, sorry. Asshole, jerk, idiot. She jumped up from her chair, threw an unfinished bun at me, and ran to the cafeteria's exit. Well, so much for conversation. I should date her, huh? Saya. The lessons were running their course, and the class was unusually quiet. I did not learn Catherine's address, and neither did I know why she didn't come to school today. But how was that strange exactly? She disappeared from my life for 1.5 years, and now I was already panicking after a single day? Would be interesting. I hate you, but I love you at the same time. It was an unpleasant feeling, as if nothing had changed after her return. I kept agonizing over things and worked myself up as I had before, but now I had a real opportunity and reason to talk with her and try and figure out our relationship. A real reason for hope. There was no tangible goal ahead, no script for victory or defeat, only gray days that followed each other like gray clouds in the sky on a rainy day. I didn't believe everything would be like it was before. I didn't believe it would be much worse, because that would simply not be possible. I just wanted to be understood. Maybe then something would change. I felt like I was terminally ill, with only 50 or 60 years left to live. Maybe in this situation it would make sense to try and get the most out of life, to live every day like the last. Hey Eliza! What's up? Welcome back to the game. You didn't miss too much, but stuff is happening. Stuff is happening as it always is. But yeah, it's good to see you today. I'm awesome. But almost anyone would throw their hands up. Why strain yourself if the end is inevitable? And only one thing could still change something for me. The belief that everything I did wasn't in vain. Tired, but you're good? Nice. Hopefully you can get untired soon. That someone else needed all of it as well. Maybe, somewhere deep inside, I was waiting for an apology too, even though all hope had long been lost. Look, everyone. I didn't just give up. I didn't surrender my arms and cease to struggle. Yes, I lost, but I fought till the very end. I did everything I could. Time and time again, it seemed to me that everyone was silently laughing at me. Even Michael, even Kyosuke, because they knew how much of a loser I was. If only they could understand. The only one who wasn't laughing was Himitsu, because she was always close. She saw everything from beginning to end. She understood. She cared. She was like a nurse on the battlefield, caring for the soldiers fallen but still alive. But in that case, why couldn't I love her the same way I love Catherine? It was as if some sort of chain shackled my soul, the chain of duty making you leap into the fight with what remains of your strength, forgetting your real reason for battle. Fatherland, religion, love. It's easy to come up with a reason to heroically die, leaving a mark on history, or at least in the memory of those that are close to you. It's much harder to come up with a reason to live when the abstract concepts like that flutter like banners over the enemy's stronghold disappear in the hazy smoke of daily existence. There was no meaning to my life, just wanted my accomplishments in battles past recognize. Abandoned by everyone, blended by the faded plashes of the once great feeling, I wandered aimlessly through the now empty battlefield. I no longer believed Himitsu could save me. Why would she need a mortally wounded cripple? Neither did I believe that I would be able to find my weapon by hand or charge forward to the distant goal. Hoping not even to win, but to die, grasping happiness in my last moments. The end. What? Hey Nick, you asleep or something? Huh? I was generally prone to daydreams, but they didn't rule my life, remaining on some existential level. Otherwise, I would have long lost myself to alcohol or taken my own life. I wouldn't normally call you a people person, but today you were just pitiful to look at. Well, thank you for the concern. Is this about Catherine? Kyosuke sat on my desk. It cracked, even bent slightly. Man, you fat ass, are you trying to cause an earthquake? I pushed him aside and laughed. I see you're lively as always. Michael appeared approach us. Well, I can't speak for Nick. All right, let's go eat or something. I just wanted to distract myself from my gloomy thoughts for a bit. Today we didn't need to elbow our way through the cafeteria. Kyosuke knew every runabout, not to mention the chubby young man had a great relationship with all the women here. We were sitting in the middle of the hall like kings, which made my Japanese friend look especially funny. All of that slightly improved my mood. Did you watch the game yesterday? Michael asked lazily, pointing the rice with the spoon, poking. You bet. Of course, you know, in the third inning. I never understood the Japanese obsession with baseball. I was gonna say, maybe they watched the Super Bowl last night, too. That'd be cool. Or rather, I couldn't understand the point of the game in the first place. Sure, it wasn't hard to remember the rules, but I was always more interested in the more traditional sports. Football, basketball, hockey. And here were Michael and Kyosuke, USA and Japan, perhaps the only two countries where baseball was popular at all. So their conversation was starting to really bore me. Guys, give it a rest already. You can propose a different topic. Michael easily parried. What topics could I possibly have? My mood quickly returned to being as bad as it could. My recent agonizing thoughts overwhelmed me again. Nick, don't be like that. Kyosuke mumbled sympathetically. I agree, you need to keep thinking positively in any situation. I was morally exhausted, tired of all these thoughts, and didn't have any strength left to get angry at them. Like you'd understand. Sometimes simple support is enough. Yes, Nick, we're your friends after all. Guys, it's not so simple. Psychologists say you can't keep everything inside. Kyosuke said didactily. What? I don't see any psychologists around here. Sometimes you can get it off your chest with someone you're close with. Michael looked as imperturbable as ever. Of course, there was nothing strange in my friends' desire to help, but I couldn't get rid of the idea that they had goals of their own in mind. With Kyosuke, it was obvious curiosity. He was like a suckerfish, feeding on heresy and rumors about the lives of others. He even had something like an information network in school. I like to believe said networks wouldn't start gossiping about my life as well. But although it was pretty simple with Kyosuke, Michael, on the other hand, He was diligently pretending to be interested in my situation just because, but somehow I felt like he wasn't the case. Well, let's say you don't exactly know. It took me a bit to find the right words. The backstory. Maybe. He responded coldly. I'll tell you then, not a big. It took just a short glance for me for Kiosuke to hush up. It's not a secret or anything, it's just... But really, what did I have to hide? Our past relationship with Catherine wasn't a secret. In reality, many people in the school knew about it, and I was acting as if I wanted to preserve something sacred, something only I and maybe also Katya knew. It was stupid, but at that moment I couldn't act in any other way. The unpleasant conversation somehow died out, and we finished lunch in relative peace. Well, wait a minute, who the heck is this? Who the heck is that person? The lessons dragged on at a painfully slow pace, but at long last the final bell rang. I was slowly packing the books when Himitsu materialized near my chair as if having jumped out of transwarp. It's a term from the Star Trek universe, associated with some technologies that allow the utilization of speeds that exceed traditional warp drive limits. It's fast. Well, that's just great. Nico-kun, let's go home together. She gave me a cute smile. As cute as always, and I'd say much cuter than in the past several days. I had nothing against going home, but I couldn't get over the fact that I'd never found out where Catherine had gone. But what could I do? There seemed to be only two logical solutions: to go where she'd been living before to try to find her mother. On one hand, there was a certain chance they'd return to the same flat they'd been using before. Why not? It was most probably an ambassadorial apartment. On the other, her mother was a relatively famous person, so in theory it'd be easy to find her. But at the same time, the nasty voice of reason in my head was whispering that Catherine had only missed school for one day, and that it was too early to panic. Hey, hello, Nico-kun. Yeah, sorry, I was daydreaming. Old apartment, mother, go home with Himitsu. Again, I might go with maybe the Himitsu route, since she was the first girl we found. So, we're going home. Screw you, Catherine. Catherine, you suck. I'm joking, she's fine. The whole thing was weird. I'd waited for a year and a half, and now I couldn't endure a single day. Catherine could have dozens of reasons to skip classes today, and most probably none of them were connected to me. Let's go. Himitsu looked somehow too content. I wanted to ask what happened, but couldn't bring myself to. As if following a habit, I was making up a believable lie, anything just to not tell her the truth. But what in the world did I have to fear now? After all, I decided to not fuss about Catherine. I probably just got too used to keeping my true feelings hidden from Himitsu, in futile attempts to prevent myself from hurting her. What are you thinking, Nico-kun? Well, Here I go again. Just school. There's barely any of it left, and then it's adulthood. I smiled to somewhat smooth out the seeming gravity of the topic. Long overdue. Well, it's more complicated for me compared to you. Why's that? You made your choice long ago. You want to teach Russian, but I don't know yet. For some reason, Himitsu blushed but kept looking at me just as intently. Better sooner than later. I have more time to get ready, too. I'm not arguing with that, but that's all well and good when you know who you want to be. And to be honest, I don't want to become anyone. Nico-kun. I'll go work retail for minimum wage and drink myself silly in the evenings. Nico-kun! Fine. If I become a teacher, we could... The end of the phrase lingered in the air. I mean, you could... What? Himitsu totally lost herself in the maze of her own unsaid words. But you used to have dreams and aspirations before. Himitsu's very cute. Yeah. Himitsu's a cutie. And when was that? I laughed. Before? She stomped her small foot as hard as she could and stopped. A year and a half ago. I don't recall. Of course you don't. She clearly meant when Catherine and I were still together. But who did I want to become at the time? The grief and pain seemed to have erased all other memories. No, I did, of course, remember how good it was to be together. The moments of joy and happiness. At the same time, I completely forgot the mundane, everyday moments. As if the whole period of my life was fixated on her. Catherine. Was I not eating, sleeping, going to school, talking to Himitsu then? I bit my lip in frustration. There was only one thing you cared about back then. What? You know what. The standard woman's cop-out suddenly sounded extremely fitting. Himitsu, come on, don't start again. Come on what? Don't start what? I guess I was so used to finishing her sentences in my head, I was reflexively attributing words she never said to her. I don't want to fight, especially not without a reason. That wasn't at all convincing, so I took an extreme measure. I'm here now, with you. I'm not running after Catherine. It was time to put an end to our game of euphemisms. Where else would you be? Her reaction was unexpectedly calm. You're your own worst enemy, after all. Well, if that's how you choose to put it. She smiled and walked on toward home. What the hell was that? Himitsu was sitting in my room doing her homework, while I lay on the bed reading mangas. It would seem like an absolutely normal sight if not for our conversation a couple hours prior. She was, however, acting as if nothing had happened. I felt uncomfortable to a degree, but decided not to get back to the topic, so as not to make things even worse. Nico-kun, should I spell or... Yeah, I can't read that word. Sorry. Well, that depends on what you're talking about. The sentence is... Word I don't know. Words, rather. Then there should be an E. What are you writing? An essay. And the topic? Religion and Faith in Dostoevsky's novel, The Brothers Karamazov. I'm saying these words so wrongly, I guarantee it. Oh! I had never even read this novel. Could I be envious of Himitsu? Our school held classes for most of the common languages of the world, but I'd rejected the idea of learning Russian as my second language since day one. I was fine as is, wasn't I? Turns out I wasn't. So is it interesting? Read it, you can find out yourself. Is it long? Don't distract me, you got your manga. The comparison of Dostoevsky to manga stung me even stronger. As you wish, milady. I jerked myself up and went to the kitchen. More than a minute later, Himitsu was yet to show up. Was I really upset with her because the entirety of her life didn't revolve around me? Whatever. Evening was drawing near. It was already time for dinner, and Himitsu still hadn't finished her essay. Annoyed, mostly with myself, I dug into the refrigerator, emerging with several eggs and vegetables. I could at least manage an omelet. Not bad. Himitsu had a bite and complimented my cooking. How's Fyodor Mikhailovich doing? Well, he tackles matters more philosophical than scrambled eggs. It's an omelet. I clarified and started to chew with double the speed. No, it wasn't envy at all. Rather, it was shame. Yes, I was ashamed of being, in fact, absolutely pathetic, even compared to Himitsu. Why even? Did I really consider her just a piece of furniture? Will you lend me the book? Are you really interested? She marveled. Well, it is Russian literature, after all. But there's no science fiction in it at all. That's not funny. Didn't want to upset you. Himitsu uttered sadly. I'm not upset, but since when are you interested in things like this? Well, I understand that you've been in it for a while, but not so heavily. This is philosophical literature you're reading already, and you're younger than me. I tried to talk calmly, but my voice sounded a tone higher than it should have. But I'm not younger than you. I just went to school later. Maybe, but still. Nico-kun, is something wrong? Everything's fine. Everything's just wonderful. First Katya returns out of the blue, and now I turn out to be the dumbest student in the school. Kari-chan. That's where realized I said too much in my fit of righteous anger. Catherine, it just came out like that. Himitsu put her chopsticks aside and stood up from the table. Don't worry, it's okay. I'll go. Himitsu, wait, you misunderstood. Nico-kun, it's alright. I just thought that what you said earlier today. I'll go. Her face expressed nothing, and I just didn't know what else to do. Till tomorrow, she said, still coldly, and left. Looked like I really was the dumbest. Whatever I said, it only made things worse. Meanwhile, the sky grew completely dark. I had most probably lived through worse days, but today was, on top of all, also completely meaningless. I didn't manage to find Catherine, but I did manage to get into a fight with Himitsu. How typical of me. If an idea gets into my head, I press forward with manic stubbornness, paying no attention to consequences or collateral damage. In the manga Kyosuke likes so much, heroes would rarely choose the path of least resistance. Contemptible is what some of them would say. Cowardliness is what others would add. But I'd say that everyone decides for themselves if the means justify the ends. Let's say I were to get Catherine to explain herself. Wouldn't that completely upset my relationship with Himitsu? And there was still the matter of the calls and the note. Was I really in danger? In any case, at the moment my head filled with something completely different. If nothing changes with Catherine and Himitsu never forgives me, then please do kill me, is what I thought. But if I were to give up now, would that really be the end of it? I tried to put myself in Himitsu's place. It didn't seem plausible. How would it look from her point of view? Without finding anything out, he just forgets about Catherine and keeps living as if nothing happened. Although it seemed to me that Himitsu would be quite alright with this scenario. Well, perhaps she would now. But we're not 7 years old anymore. Something like this might fly once more, but twice maybe, and then she'd just go away, cry it out, and leave everything behind as just another childhood memory. I barely believed my own logic, but driven by a surge of fear, I kept piling up every remotely plausible theory. I felt ashamed about Himitsu, but at the same time, couldn't keep Catherine out of my head. Although after the events of the past day, wasn't sure about my feelings toward her either. At least not completely. I was just tired. With some sleep, these feelings would fade away. Only to come back tomorrow? No, I couldn't keep going like this. Needed to find her and let her go, or at that moment I didn't want to think any further. Maybe I was afraid, but what the hell did it matter? The last car drove down the street, its tires creaked quietly, and my district sank into pre-dawn silence. Good night! Bedtime, go to bed. Loading. The 12th. A man can always be judged by how he looks forward to the weekend. If the working days of the week were spent in labor, if you're exhausted and just want to rest, then you treat the weekend as a deserved reward. If you don't care, it's just the end of the week, then you're a lazy deadbeat. Was what my father used to say. I doubted he was an overly strict man, rather he was painfully fair-minded. Maybe he could no longer live under this totalitarian Soviet regime, or maybe his reasons were much more banal and mundane. In any case, it was far beyond the understanding of the small boy jerked out of his everyday life. I remembered being led to the airport by the hand. My father dragged a large suitcase behind him, a huge plane gobbling up passengers, then soared away to the sun, higher than the birds, higher than Icarus, who I'd read about in a book of Greek myths. I didn't feel scared at all at the time. I guess I really didn't understand what was going on. Slowly gliding along the lush carpet of clouds, the plane looked more like a ship swaying peacefully on the waves. And when the silhouettes of forests, rivers, cities, and endless vast steppes and tundras appeared below, they for some reason seemed unreal, like I was watching a film. The airport in that foreign country felt completely different. The new city was like another planet compared to my hometown. Many strange people were running about, speaking an unfamiliar language. The lights of the billboards, the endless strings of cars. I held tighter to my mother's coat. It seemed as if in just a moment, I'd be picked up and carried away by this flow to a place where little children never return. Dad looked tense. The vein in his temple throbbed from time to time. People were constantly coming into our cramped hotel room. Some of them spoke Russian, but I couldn't understand exactly what they were saying. And then we moved here. I would never have thought that all of this was just for the three of us. My old room had seemed enormous to me. I would build pillow fortresses, jumped on the bed without even reaching the ceiling, and it seemed like the closet that Mom called a Czechoslovak wall held all the treasures in the world. It's a bulky piece of furniture that would take up most of the living room and was considered a sign of wealth for Soviet citizens. Icarus' story is so good. The angel that flew so close to the sun that his wings melted, and he fell down back to earth, right? Is that the one? After that, our new house to my mind was a mansion or a palace out of Pushkin fairy tales. Ooh, this is a new place. Almost right away, I met the neighbor girl with a strange name. She was way too shy and would never let go of her simple ragdoll, but she spoke Russian, although with a slight accent. She didn't know how to play cops and robbers, which I was very upset about. It was as if until I arrived, all she had been doing that day in and day out was read her stupid books with scribbles. Like we had calligraphy classes in the first grade, and here, it was as if no one went to school at all. But there were cool pictures in her books, and over time I started to understand Japanese cartoons too. Not without my new friends' help, of course. She didn't stop being weird, but I got used to her. In fact, to me, she became the only one I was close to besides my parents. Well, that's cool. I'm glad my character had a friend. Naturally, I did not look forward to the weekend. For me, the whole problem boiled down to the fact that I wasn't going to see Catherine today. The Catherine issue still hung in the air, and then there was my recent fight with Himitsu. One of my friends gave you a cake pop? Lucky. I know what a cake is, but what's a cake pop, by the way? Like a popsicle? Cake popsicle? I couldn't be two-faced. Perhaps could pretend nothing was happening, couldn't let things run their course. Both Catherine and Himitsu knew that. My lack of action would eventually drive both of them away. And while Katya couldn't be driven any further than she was now, the prospect of losing Himitsu genuinely scared me, which meant I had to decide on something. I didn't want to think I had to make a decision, because that would sound like a verdict. To top it off, I didn't have the resolve to imagine that Catherine and I could be together again. Himitsu hadn't come. Well, there wasn't anything surprising about that. Even she had a line of her own. Even she had a line her self-respect couldn't stand being crossed. Was yesterday's fight the last straw? How long would this have gone on if Catherine never returned? It's a ball of cake covered in chocolate. Ooh, like a chocolate-covered strawberry, but cake. That sounds pretty good. Very, very filling, I bet, too. Alright, I'll have some for you, babe. Can you send some over, please? Thanks. Hee. After eating a half-assed breakfast, I simply sat in the middle of the empty kitchen, aimlessly staring into the distance. This was quite a problem life had thrown at me. Come on, life, what are you doing? Everything's been going fine. I said to no one in particular, just to make sure I wasn't sitting in a vacuum. Vacuum blocks sounds, warmth, love, just like Katya's heart. No one needed to talk to her after all. There was just one little thing to do first. Find her. I wasn't going to work. To look for a single girl, even an American in a multi-million person Tokyo, was a dumb idea. Not to mention, she probably didn't want to be found anyway, and we would probably see each other on Monday at school. But I couldn't sit still either. First I stood up and started pacing back and forth through the kitchen, then through the house, then walked out into the yard. The feeling of powerlessness was weighing down, depressing me. I felt like a wind predator in a small, cramped cage. If only I could break free, I'd show them all. These agonizing thoughts drove me further and further into the depths of dark frustration. The ringing of the telephone sounded somehow very simple and mundane. Recently, I'd seemed to have learned to guess who was calling without even picking up. This time, too, it seemed like everything was fine. Hello? Hey, Nick. I hung up the phone. Anybody but him. Mixed with and in contrast to my melancholy, his stupid cheerfulness would create a grim cocktail, leading to the suffering of innocent people. Still, he needed to decide what to do next. Indulge in the aforementioned melancholy all the way until evening, or try and do something. I didn't know where to look for Catherine, but deep inside I desperately wanted to leave the house for somewhere far away, where my depression wouldn't reach me. Oh, well, go for a walk or stay home. I'm gonna go for a walk. You go for a walk, a turtle lands on your head. You are dead. Game over. Right across from my house on the other side of the street was Himitsu's. I like this house. Look at all the greenery here. Very nice. Our district was strikingly eclectic, combining both the traditional Japanese style and European mini manor houses like hers. Himitsu was half Russian, but I didn't think she wanted but I didn't think she'd want to live in an izba. An izba is a traditional form of housing, usually made of wood, found in the Slavic countryside. Cool. I would sometimes go to my grandparents' place when I was little. They had a typical Russian izba. Himitsu's grandparents, on the other hand, lived in a traditional Japanese paper house. A 0 out of 3 on the scale of 3 piglets, I'd say. What the heck does that mean? Nico-kun! Apparently I got lost in daydreaming. Hey, how are you doing? Himitsu was walking back from the direction of the market with 2 large bags in her hands. Fine, you. Me too. Going somewhere? Just decided to take a walk. Why? Nothing, just... She kept to a minimal level of politeness. Minimal for her. Listen, I started merrily. Somehow, even to myself, that merriness was unexpected. I wanted to say, sorry about yesterday, but I don't care what came over me. It's alright, I understand. Really, I'm serious. Don't think you did anything wrong. It's all about me. If a girl tells you it's not about you, it's definitely about you. And what if it's a guy? What if it's me? Then it's definitely stupid or worse. You know what? Forget it. Weather's great today. Let's take a walk. You mean, right now? Himitsu slightly raised the bags, implying she had things to do. Yeah, right now. Is it the weekend or not? I don't know, Nico-kun. I just still need to make lunch. You can't work all the time and never rest. And really, not only did Himitsu regularly make food for me, she also saddled herself with all the chores of her own household after the divorce of her parents. You love Himitsu. She's great. With her pink hair and a cat collar? What the heck is that doing there? So let's go. I upped to her and snagged the bags out of her hands with a quick motion. Nico-kun! Himitsu protested, but her voice just sounded reluctant too. Too timid, like when we were little. Fine. She pouted and sternly marched off to her house. I was still thinking about Catherine, but decided to take a breather. I could postpone dealing with her to Monday, although I couldn't just cast it out of my mind. I needed to distract myself. Maybe Himitsu wasn't the best option for it, for many reasons, but fate itself seemed to have brought us together this morning. I didn't believe in coincidences like that, but many things in life were hard to explain logically. Here I am! Oh, she changed her outfit. Himitsu's sing-song voice came from the doorway. She quickly closed the door and ran up to me. A happy smile shone on her face. Well, let's go. Aw, cute, I know, right? Yes, but where to? Where do you want to go? Hadn't actually thought about that, because I would have been fine just strolling through the streets if I were alone. I don't know, you choose. She stared at me with a serious expression. Maybe in different circumstances, Himitsu would have simply said, anywhere with you? With you? But not today. Definitely not today. On the other hand, the emotional part of the situation didn't matter much. I would still have to be the one to make the decision. Fine, let's go to the amusement park. I think you wanted to for a while. Have I? Well, maybe I have. If you don't want to. Stop it, Nico-kun, let's go! She playfully took me by the arm and dragged me along. Hey, easy girl. Oh my gosh, it's the amusement park. I would go on that, and that, and that, and that. Maybe this, if Himitsu forced me to. But yeah, I like amusement parks. This one looks nice. My parents told me stories about... It's the Russian acronym for the All-Union Exhibition of Achievements of National Economy. It is an exhibition and recreational complex location in Moscow and considered one of the largest in the world. Read me stories about... But for a while after my first visit to a Japanese amusement park, I thought that was the reason they had left the Union. It was a real world of children, a collection of dreams and recreated in reality. These days I barely found any of that interesting. Himitsu, however, seemed to be really excited, just like a kid. BRB, alrighty. Come back so we can hang out in the amusement park, though. Quickly. Nah, it's fine. Do what you gotta do. Himitsu, however, seemed to be really excited, just like a kid. Excited about the candy floss, the roundabouts, even the haunted house. Let's go. She whined. You sure you're not afraid? I'm not. I mean, I am, but there really isn't anything scary in there. I mostly didn't care, but the idea of haunted houses always seemed stupid to me. I didn't like horror movies either. Real life could be much scarier, and in my life right now wasn't far off from one of Hitchcock's films. So you want to get scared even though you know there's nothing to be afraid of? Well, no, but... Difficult question, Warren. difficult questions weren't Himitsu's strong suit after all. Let's just go, Nico-kun. You said it. Today's the weekend, and you're out here grumbling. People must simply want a shake-up, an injection of adrenaline to distract themselves from the daily grind and feel a surge of emotion. That must have been why horror stuff like that didn't attract me. My life was virtually overflowing with emotion already. All right. Oh, scary. Look at this place. Ooh. Is it Halloween already? The haunted house was filled with all kinds of paper mache yokai. Is the umbrella term for many demons, spirits, supernatural entities in Japanese folklore. Yokai watch. Wait, so cute. You're back? Hey, welcome back. Werewolves, women with long necks, and other darkspawn from Japanese folklore. I wouldn't have been scared even if I knew why these things were supposed to be scary. For example, the drunkard raccoon seemed pretty cute to me. Tanuki or bear danuki are traditional Japanese supernatural shape-shifting beasts, whose default form is the raccoon dog. They are often associated with happiness, wealth, and well-being, are big fans of sake. Cool. Welcome back. We were moving forward pretty slowly, partly because it was dark in here. Himitsu tightly clasped my arm and would squeeze it so hard at scarier moments that it hurt. Hey, what's the scary part supposed to start? You're always like this. What about me? What matters is that you like it. Truth be told, I had already started to get really bored when suddenly... Ah! Something jumped at me out of the darkness! I sprang back, dragging Himitsu along. I made a wild swing in the direction of the jumping something. The ghost cracked apart and sank to the floor with a distinctive sound of tearing cardboard. He is so hot. Nico is hot. He is pretty cool. What the hell was that? A kijo. Alright, what's a kijo? Japanese folklore are man-eating oni, demon woman of terrifying appearance. Himitsu laughed. I knew you'd like it. What? Damn it! I think I broke it, guys. I think we're in trouble. After that, we started moving even slower, with me now constantly throwing glances left and right, unwilling to die from a heart attack at the tender age of 18. Didn't you say there was nothing to be afraid of? There isn't. I was just startled. It can happen to anyone. Yeah, sure. It can. I responded rudely, with my heart beating like crazy. Fine. What do you want me to say? Yeah, I got scared. I'm glad. Glad about what? Are you a sadist now? No, it's just... She grew embarrassed and dropped her eyes as if she wasn't going to continue. Still, she found the resolve. I'm glad you managed to distract yourself. Distract myself from what? I asked, uncomprehending. But Himitsu's gaze, filled with anxiety and sadness, made me understand. You know, sorry for my behavior yesterday and all, but I'm fine. I don't need to distract myself from anything. Even the buzzing yokai in the distance seemed to have grown silent for a moment, captivated by our own conversation. Sorry, I didn't want to start it all over again. No, of course it's not about you. I mean, I said as much myself. It's never about you. It can never be about you. What am I even saying? Nico-kun. My head suddenly started to ache. Thoughts about Catherine rushing over me with new strength, making the pain unbearable. Enough. Please stop pretending we're still 7 years old. Was that it? Was this really what it's all been about all this time? Did Himitsu desperately resist growing up, thinking she could live her entire life acting like a child? Children are afraid of pain, of sadness, of being scolded, of being shown their mistakes. They hate when their favorite toys are taken away. Children don't want to draw conclusions and learn, don't want to grow up. Himitsu, enough. But... She seemed to want to say something, but stopped when she looked at me. Please stop. Don't you understand you're only making it worse? Don't worry about me like this. I'm not a kid. I can make my own decisions. Whatever they are. Nico-kun, please don't. Her small shoulders trembled and the ghost fell silent. You can be with her. You can be with whoever you want. Just don't be like this. She was no longer crying. She was weeping, but I was too riled up to pay any attention. I blamed Himitsu, blamed probably be for too much and undeservingly, but at that time I simply couldn't stop. It's cowardly to shift your problems to other people, and even more so to those people who are close to you. But when you have no strength left to cope with them yourself, sometimes there's just no other way. Or maybe I was just making excuses. It's sickening enough already. And then there's you. You want to support me? Then stop prying into my soul all the time. I'll sort it out myself and tell you my decision. Himito let out one less sob and ran away, breaking cardboard yokais on her way. The door swung closed behind her, and I was left alone in the comically phony hell, while the real demons were eating at me from inside. Enough already! In the last week, my life had turned into some shitty TV drama with a cheap plot. Unfortunately, it wasn't actually a TV show and couldn't as easily be turned off. Were I to continue on the same course, it would only get worse from here. And in a couple years, there would be nothing left, only pain in the void. And void, like after Mom and Dad's death. I didn't want to lose anyone else close to me, and it didn't matter what I really felt. My feet carried me to the exit as if of their own accord. After running out onto the street, I was momentarily blinded by the bright sunlight. The contrast with the gloom of the haunted house was too great. When my vision returned to me, I looked around and noticed Himitsu sitting on a nearby bench calmly eating candy floss. Hey guys, do you see Himitsu? Where can she be? Is she over here? Is she up here? Is she here? On the coaster? There she is! You found her. Nothing remained of the fact that just a minute ago she began sobbing violently. Besides maybe the reddish eyes. Good day. May I make your acquaintance? My name is Nikolai, I said, approaching. I sounded stupid and out of place, but Himitsu loved jokes like this. At least she had before. No, you may not. I'm waiting for a friend. She smiled as if nothing happened. And what are you doing here? I'm waiting for a friend too. She has red hair and often makes a funny face like this. I puffed out my cheeks and popped my eyes out. Himitsu laughed. Come on, stop. No, I'm telling you, that's exactly the face she makes. Nico-kun, stop. I sat down next to her, although not too close. Sorry for today, in general. Let's just not talk about it anymore. I let out a sigh, getting ready for a long monologue. All right. Himitsu gave a short answer, still focused on her candy floss. What the heck is candy floss, by the way? I wanted to say that. What, that's it? That's simple? Of course. Why fight if we cannot fight? You have class now? No! Just skip class, Mafia Babe. Just skip it. Who cares? This is more important. I'm joking. Have a good one, Mafia Babe. Enjoy your class. I'll see you soon. That's true, but I just wanted to say I did nothing wrong. You don't deserve to be treated like this. I know. Suddenly, she turned to me and said in a serious tone, You wish you could. I wish you luck, Mafia Babe. Give that class hell. Nico-kun, enough. I understand. You didn't mean to and you won't do it again. Right? I felt a shiver run down my spine. Yeah, of course. And if you do, I'll bite you. Himitsu chomped through almost half the remaining floss in one go. Scary. I laughed while actually feeling a bit uneasy. Now let's go. I still want to ride the bumper cars. Bumper cars? Now you're talking. Maybe there was nothing strange about the change in Himitsu's behavior. It might have just been a defense mechanism. To isolate herself from the problem, to ignore it, to pretend nothing had happened. Meanwhile, I couldn't escape the thoughts that came to me in the haunted house. But the shame of what I had done, the memories of a sobbing Himitsu, and my guilt weren't letting me process them properly. Maybe I could do it later, when she would have calmed down a bit. And I couldn't even say for sure if Himitsu was vindictive. She never really resented me, or anyone at all, really. A sweetheart, as my mother would probably say. Himitsu would often get sick when she was little, and as a consequence, only went into first grade when I was already in second. At that time, I barely knew Japanese and attended school at the embassy. I liked socializing with fellow Russians, but at the same time I felt sorry for Himitsu. She really wanted to go to the same school as me. After my classes, I would read her books for my homework. She listened very carefully, and never interrupted, even though she could read much better and faster than me. And then Himitsu went to the same middle school as me. My classmates would crack jokes at me about us being together and all that. I probably wouldn't see anything wrong with that now. but at that age, the spirit of rebelliousness and contrarianism simmered in me, and I denied it as hard as I could, which clearly upset Himitsu, but she mostly kept quiet. Surely she had an opinion of her own on the matter which was very different from mine. Time passed, our relationship slowly changed. I got used to Himitsu, and in the end, started to regard her like an inseparable part of my life, like a constant. But what did Himitsu herself think? I probably never really cared. The two of us were passing a booth where you could shoot a pneumatic rifle at targets to earn points. Enough points would earn you a prize. "Let's try it," Himitsu said with excitement. "I don't really know how to shoot." "Come on, just a couple times. Look, it's not very expensive." "Okay." I took the rifle, turned out to be lighter than I expected, tried it, rested the stock against my shoulder, and aimed. To get the maximum amount of points, I had to shoot the very center of the furthest target. It seemed like the rifle's sight was looking right at it, but things couldn't be that easy, could they? My finger trembled on the trigger. I couldn't make up my mind, endlessly shifting the barrel left and right, up and down. "Nico-kun, shoot!" "Wait, don't jinx it. Come on, fire!" I finally got tired of it. Hit or miss, what did it matter? Bam! In my mind, the sound of the shot was supposed to be far louder than it ended up being. "Oh, striking marksmanship, young man!" The booth's owner exclaimed. "What? You mean I hit it? Well, fortune favors fools. You may choose any prize." "Any at all?" "Of course." I looked at Himitsu, and her eyes immediately lit up with joy. "I want the elephant over there." Aww! There really was a giant stuffed pink elephant on the far shelf. It was at least a meter tall and just as wide. A pink elephant. Really, it's bigger than you. "Hey!" All right. "Could you give us," I addressed the owner, "the pink elephant over there?" "Of course." He talked in a sing-song voice and generally looked up pretty amusing. "What about you, Eliza? Would you want a big pink elephant?" "I'd be happy with one." I remember when I won a fairground thing, by the way. I won a big stuffed doggy. It was awesome. "Here!" It took Himitsu some effort, but she managed to brace the prize, almost disappearing behind the stuffed animal. "Can you even see anything?" "I can," she said aggrievedly. It seemed like the voice was coming from the elephant itself. "Oh my god, a talking elephant." "Oh my god!" I theatrically exclaimed. "You won it, so you carry it." Himitsu handed me the prize and strode forward with a sprightly step. "Hey, Yuki-an, a visual novel? Yep, I'm streaming a visual novel. A lovely Valentine's Day-like visual novel. Maybe not Valentine's Day-like, but it's in the spirit. But how have you been, though? It's good to see ya." Sprightly step. Carrying the elephant was more convenient for me, sure, but it was still a subpar experience. Truly, sometimes it's better to be club-handed. After a weekend like that, you need a rest from all the resting. You're doing okay. How am I? I'm doing awesome. Streaming this game at long last after waiting for so many years. It's finally happening. And I'm enjoying it so far. It's called Love, Money, and Rock and Roll. You should check it out sometime. It's really good. She said cheerfully, stepping out from yet another attraction. "Why do you think people hate Monday mornings?" "Because it's the first day of the week." "Not everywhere." "What do you mean?" "Well, in some places, the weeks start on Sunday." "That's nonsense. I don't believe it." "Where?" "I don't remember." "See, that means you made it up." "I didn't make anything up. I read it in a book." "A science fiction one?" "Maybe, yeah. Why does it matter?" "It matters because it's not real. Maybe that was on another planet." An interesting name. I know, right? I have found a lot of love, not a lot of money, and one instance of rock and roll. Lots of love, though, so that's cool. A different planet can't have a Sunday because it has a different rotation period. What does that have to do with days of the week? All right, I give up. You win. Haha, that's better. A pleased smile appeared on Himitsu's face. "Well, let's go home." "Let's go." On leaving the park, I noticed someone familiar in the crowd. Or maybe it was just my imagination. Really, what would she be doing here alone? "Did something happen, Nico-kun?" "Huh? No, nothing. You look like you just seen a ghost." You think one couldn't follow us from the haunted house? I did not want to remember what had happened there. That place is stupid, I told you. I agree. For the last hour, Himitsu had been trying her hardest to pretend nothing had happened. She almost managed to convince me of it. Let's use the subway. I'm tired. As you wish, milady. Watching Himitsu drag the pink elephant home was quite amusing. As I stood there and observed until the door closed behind her. A date? Maybe a date. It's a lot more complicated than that. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening right now, Yuki-en. There's like 3 other girls besides Himitsu that my character's gonna date at some point. And there's also the threat of violence over my head, which is a big thing right now. The rest of the day promised to be boring. Mitsu hadn't made lunch for her dad, but definitely couldn't ignore dinner, so I was about to spend today's evening alone. But for some reason, I wasn't as upset by this fact as I could have been. After all, today wasn't all that bad. I leisurely walked through my yard, whistling some catchy tune from an anime, opened the door, and found a piece of paper underneath it. A note. All the worries and fears came rushing back in a single moment as I froze in place, unable to move. It immediately felt like hundreds of eyes were watching me, attentive, cold gazes from twilight that were piercing me down to the bone. A love rectangle is about to happen. Well, I'm gonna do more than one playthrough, that's what I mean. So for now it's gonna be a love line. It's going to be 4 different love lines. But also, like I said, this is happening right now. But determination suddenly returned to me, and the silent observers disappeared as quickly as they came. I bent down and picked up the note. It was in English. Nikolai, I thought you wanted to talk, but I guess you really didn't. I'll be waiting for you in the bar until 8 p.m. C. I cast a quick glance at the clock. It was 7:45. The pleasant memories of the day spent with Himitsu melted away so quickly it was strange. I only had 15 minutes, and getting to the bar would take at least 20. That is if I walked. I rushed through the streets, nimbly dodging people and cars. Never been in bad shape, but now my lungs barely seemed to fill with enough air. My vision dimmed and I almost got myself run over a couple of times. Could it really be that simple? So many times in the past year and a half, I've been telling myself that if Catherine were to return, I'd have the self-respect to not come running at her first like a little puppy. I didn't care in the slightest why exactly she came today, why she was waiting for me at the bar. The cruelest thing anyone can do to another human being is give them false hope. But at the same time, hope is intoxicating. It makes all thoughts of worry and common sense lose importance. Somewhere deep inside, I felt sorry for myself, disgusted by my own spineless and lack of character. But that was nothing more than introspection of a junkie between doses. Just yesterday, he had been telling himself he'd been able to kick the habit, and today, all he could think of was the drug. Just recently, it seemed to me that it was all over, then that I would be able to let go and forget. But all I needed to slip again was the smallest thing, a tiny piece of paper folded in 2, and a couple simple words. Again and again I imagined Catherine say it. I don't particularly want to, but if you insist, we could as well talk. A favor, indifference, at the same time arrogant superiority. Is my character a butler? Nope, he is actually a high school boy. A high school in his senior year, I believe, in Japan. We're in Japan right now, by the way. He's Russian, by the way. The less we show our love to a woman, the easier she is to win. Was it? What? The less we show our love to women, the easier she is to win. Or, the less we love her when we woo her, the more we draw a woman in. Is a quote from Eugene Onegin, a novel in verse by A.S. Pushkin. Really? I guess it worked the other way around too. Finally, I stood at the doors of the familiar bar, greedily gasping for air and trying to catch my breath. Why would she even choose this place? I definitely couldn't show up there looking like that. I had to spruce myself up. Wasn't even about self-respect, just common decency. Not to mention, this way I'd have a better chance. Large drops of sweat were running down my face, and the giant sweat spot on my shirt wouldn't dry up in a minute. Could I possibly look any more pitiful? Begrudgingly, I entered. Oh, someone's here. Who's this guy? It was pretty empty inside, and the clouds of smoke, usually for a Saturday evening, didn't hover at the ceiling. Only several visitors were nestled in the far corner. "Oi, Kolya!" The bartender called out to me, idly wiping glasses at the counter. Catherine was nowhere to be seen. "What time is it?" "8. I'm in exactly. It's 8, 3 minutes past. Why?" He asked, surprised. "Nothing now. I was just 3 minutes late. Sure, it would be stupid to think Katya left at exactly 20, but even if she did, she'd need some time to get out of the bar and walk far enough. Was Catherine here?" I'd already caught my breath, but my voice still sounded ragged. "Kolya, are you all right? Just answer the question." "Well..." He put the glass aside and walked closer to me. "She was. Spent 20 or so minutes sitting here and then left." "What?" "Yeah, I found it strange too." "No, I mean, when was that?" "About 3 hours ago." So it was all a lie? The note, the promise to wait until 8? Although I hadn't made the promise up myself. Did she say anything? "No." "And what about you?" "What about me?" He stared at me uncomprehendingly. "Nothing. Forget it. Do you want to tell me what this is all about?" The bartender poured a mug of beer and put it in front of me. "On the house." "Not today." I carefully moved the mug away. "Shit's fruit, isn't it?" "Guess so." Somewhere deep inside I knew that the ostensibly sympathy from the bartender was nothing more than a skillful act perfected over years of work. But at the same time, now more than ever, I needed support. What was this on Catherine's part? Maybe it wasn't Catherine that sent the note. Or maybe she didn't. Maybe she got the time wrong. A mockery? A joke? Did she just change her mind? You should try a visual novel called One. I might have heard of it. Do me a favor, Yuki-an. Send me a Twitch whisper with that title, and I'll look it up later so I can remember it. Was it really important? I looked into the bartender's eyes and, for some reason, smiled. "I'll go." "Well, alright. Take care." Later. In the 5 minutes I had spent in the bar, it grew totally dark outside. The steam coming out of my mouth hinted it was time to get my winter clothes down from the loft. Maybe I should have gotten myself a drink. At least I'd be warmer. "You will? Thank you." I smirked under my breath. It was that feeling when you're too tired of bearing with the pain and an internal defense mechanism activates, suppressing all emotion. And now I was absolutely sure it wouldn't be running after Catherine anymore. Moreover, I didn't know what and why even happened today. Whisper. Did you send it? You know what I mean by sending a whisper, right? Like send me a message on Twitch. That's what I mean. That's what I meant there. Must have been a temporary mind haze. I reached our home on autopilot, thinking neither about the past nor Katya. If you don't know how to send a whisper, by the way, let me know. Alright? And I'll give you a hand. My windows were alight. It had to be Himitsu. I was even somewhat glad. At least with her, things were simpler. I opened the door with my keys. For some reason, Himitsu had locked herself inside, which was weird. "Hi!" Misunderstood. It's fine. Don't worry. I said nonchalantly, entering the kitchen. She was sitting on a chair, her back unnaturally straight, looking at the painting on the wall. "I don't even remember where it's from," Mitsu said melancholically. "Mom and Dad brought it along from Russia." She didn't react. "Why?" "No reason. It's just a beautiful painting. The Russian scenery. I always wondered how it feels to be there. I thought maybe we could go there together one day. You and I. You would show me your old home. We would walk through the forests and fields, just like in this painting." We will. No reason not to." Alright, Yuki-an, I'm gonna type in chat super quick. Click on my username when you see it in chat, and you should see the word whisper. Then when you do that, you can send me a whisper. So there you go. I said hi. Click on my username, click on whisper, and then you should be able to whisper me. "We will. No reason not to." Himitsu was acting unnaturally and wasn't even trying to hide it. "I don't think it'll work out. Not anymore." "Why?" She finally tore herself away from the painting and looked at me. "Because I'll need to study." Himitsu suddenly smiled and continued. And so will you. As if I would. But there will be breaks. We can go for a trip then. Maybe. Anyway, time for dinner now. I cast a look at the painting. I honestly had no idea what it depicted on it. A place in the real world, or a piece of the artist's imagination. Does it really matter if people like it? At least Himitsu did. She even wanted to go there. When is dinner? Himitsu wasn't herself. She didn't ask where I'd been, even though by the looks of it, she had been waiting for me for a while. Here! Himitsu said proudly, putting a plate with baked potatoes and a steak in front of me. To what do I owe the honor? I know you like this stuff, so I just decided to make it. I do, sure, but you don't usually... you prefer healthy food. It's okay to treat yourself sometimes. You did win me the elephant today. Alright, the elephant. The giant pink one. Where did you put it? In my room. I wanted to put it on the shelf first, but there wasn't enough space, so the corner had to do. I laughed. Hey, don't hate me. Imagine how hard it must be for the proud African animal to live within four walls. It's used to the open savanna. Nico-kun. Himitsu smiled and started eating. For a while, I managed to forget about the note about Catherine. I simply enjoyed my favorite meal, and I had no desire to think about Himitsu's initial weird behavior. How are things at home? Everything's fine. Why? Well, you did skip lunch. It's okay, sometimes. Didn't you say so yourself? Why wasn't she asking where I had been? Maybe there's something else? Himitsu took a moment to think. Not really. Everything's fine. Was I working myself up over nothing? Maybe she didn't notice anything. Who could know of what I was off doing? Maybe I was saving the world. Okay, I guess. Any plans for tomorrow? Of course. Tomorrow's our big autumn cleanup. Huh? Really? Okay then. Come whenever you want. I was talking about myself, actually. We're cleaning my house. Of course. I grew somewhat embarrassed. I'll clean up too then. Himitsu giggled. You clean? Don't worry. I'll deal with it next week. Alright, if you say so. I suddenly felt uneasy around her, because I was hiding a new note from Catherine, and there was clearly something wrong with Himitsu. At the same time, dinner was on the table and she was smiling, which made me even more uneasy. Cleaning is a responsible task. It requires a good night's sleep. The two of us have gotten tired enough today already. I'm not tired at all. Okay. What do you want to do then? What about you? Go to sleep, to be honest. Alright, let's sleep then. Didn't you say you weren't tired? Well, if that's what you want. Okay, I guess. I stood up, but Himitsu remained in place, looking at me expectantly. Worried thoughts started to sprout up in my mind. Should I see you safely home? I'll be sleeping with you. She replied calmly. Himitsu, you're scaring me. Stop that. A nervous giggle escaped my lips, and it took a titanic effort to not take a step back. Where did you go to today, Nico-kun? What? To the amusement park with you, don't you remember? And after that, I was home. I stammered out. The whole time? Yeah. Then where did you run off to? The calmness of Himitsu's voice as she said all that was making me feel genuinely scared. After her? After who? I didn't run after anyone. She didn't respond, just kept glaring at me. I realized I was useless to keep denying it. Were you watching me? I don't need to watch you. I know you too well. But then how? I looked out the window and saw you find a note and then run off somewhere. So you were watching me after all. Think whatever you want. She gave a short reply and stood up from the chair. It's none of your business in the first place. Oh, that's how you talk now. Himitsu tried to appear strong to make me understand she was really upset. Naturally, she had the best possible intentions and was doing it out of concern for me. Maybe someone else would have believed it, but not me. I didn't feel guilty, I just couldn't. Not after everything that had happened. I was trapped, as if being torn apart from the inside by two opposite forces. Yes, thank you. I got it, Yuki-an. Thank you! I'm gonna check it out as soon as I'm done streaming, alright? And we'll see if it's good. Ha 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 ha. But yeah, thank you. I'm tired. I sat down on the chair next to Himitsu and let out a helpless sigh, burying my head in my hands. Leave me alone, all of you, at least for today. Nico-kun! Her voice was as cold as before, but notes of sadness could be heard in it. Nico-kun, I worry about you. You can't keep up like this. She's hurt us so much. Us. What a truly curious choice of words. Just forget her. Is it really that hard? Of course it's hard, I whispered quietly. A couple hours ago I wanted to talk to someone, but the bartender certainly wasn't fit for this conversation. Could Himitsu be? Previously, I'd done everything I could to make sure the thought of my relationship with Catherine never crossed her mind, maybe even impossible. But now I'd been driven into a corner, and there wasn't anyone else nearby. I didn't want to see anyone else nearby. I can help if you want me to. She approached and embraced me. It'll be all right. I'm here. I hugged her back and pressed her close. I was serious, if you want it. What are you talking about? Well, the sleeping. I couldn't see her face, but was sure she blushed to the roots of her hair. Do you really think that by doing that you'd be able to replace Catherine? I don't want to replace anyone. She pushed me away slightly and took a step back. Nico-kun, it hurts me that you've done it so many times with her, and you do it now, but you don't want to do it with me. Would do it now? If Catherine were in Himitsu's place now, would I be able to resist? But what did it matter? As if sex wasn't the only reason I fell in love with Katya. What are you talking about? Do you really think sex is what's most important here? That it was the only reason we were together? Maybe you think that I can't love you just because we haven't done it? That's what you think about me, huh? I couldn't stop. Her words genuinely upset me. Was it because there was some truth to them? That's not what I meant at all. Nico-kun, I'm sorry. Aw, she's crying, I think. Himitsu burst into tears. All right, it's fine. I stood up and hugged her carefully. It just seemed like you believed sex would solve all our problems. She didn't say anything and just kept sobbing. You don't really believe that, do you? Himitsu jerked her head from side to side. That's good. Sometimes even the people closest to each other should have some time apart to think things over. And what could we even talk about in this situation? Give me a second, guys. I need to quench my thirst real quick. When reading a big visual novel, make sure to keep hydrated. What could we even talk about in this situation? So, see you tomorrow? Cleaning, she mumbled. Fine, then see you on Monday. Himitsu said nothing and walked out of the kitchen, her eyes glued to the floor. I sunk into the chair and waited until the front door closed after her. God, things could have gone so differently. Really, why couldn't I have sex with Himitsu? Why is this a conversation I'm having right now? Putting aside all the moralizing about it having to be between two people who love each other, what if it would have solved all our problems? And what if it hadn't? Then Himitsu would definitely start to hate me, and that would be something I could never forgive myself for. Tokyo was sleeping, paying no attention to my problems. This night, the multi-million-person metropolis felt absolutely lifeless. Even the street lamps seemed to have dimmed their light, trying not to wake the sleeping inhabitants. I was lying in my bed, staring at the ceiling. I looked around the room a couple of times. Something was wrong, out of place maybe, or something was missing. It was hard to figure out what exactly was the matter in the dark, but after a while it dawned on me that the ladder wasn't on the table. The letter. Had Himitsu taken it? Like I cared. Winter is better than summer. There's no salvation from heat, but you can escape the cold via a warm sweater and a traditional Japanese kotatsu. We would make a snowman, light up the Christmas tree lamp, eat tangerines and Russian salad. Olivier salad is a traditional salad dish in Russian cuisine, which was also popular in other post-Soviet countries and around the world. It is usually made with diced boiled potatoes, carrots, brine, dill pickles, or cucumber, green peas, eggs, celery, onions, diced boiled chicken or bologna sausage, sometimes ham or hot dogs, and tart apples, with salt, pepper, and mustard added to enhance flavor. Dressed with mayonnaise, in many countries the dish is commonly referred to as a Russian salad. Would you like to eat that, Yukian? A massive, mosh-posh, hodgepodge of all that stuff. And early in the morning, we'd run into what presents Father Frost brought us. Dead Moraz, or Grandfather Frost, is a legendary figure, similar to St. Nicholas, Father Christmas, and Santa Claus, who had his roots in Slavic mythology. The tradition of Ded Moroz is mostly spread in East Slavic countries and is an important part of Russian culture. Don't think you can finish all that. Me neither. Me neither indeed. If only things were as simple as now as they were when we were little. I hadn't wanted to grow up. I hadn't asked for all these problems and complications. Why did everyone else, Kyosuke, Michael, even Saya-chan, live the lives of normal teenagers, while mine resembled some kind of melodrama with elements of tragedy? How would our fates have turned out had my parents not decided to emigrate from the USSR, I wondered. They would have probably still been alive. And both Himitsu and Catherine probably would have been happier, which meant it wasn't all my fault. Catharsis, the redemption through suffering, was, I guess, the only thing that really helped me. I drove my flagellating introspection to its highest point, convicted myself of all the mortal sins, served as the judge, the prosecutor, and the jury, and found myself guilty. And only after that did I manage to fall asleep. Good night! Loading. It's the 13th. We're almost halfway through the month. Sometimes life gives you a second chance. All you need for it is a good night's sleep. The events of the past day had already faded and no longer brought me as much pain. The storm had passed and I was standing on the deck watching it go. My existential skiff had somehow avoided being crushed, and it was all over now, but I had almost slipped up. Maybe the only thing Himitsu would have tolerated was self-pity, even if it manifested like this. Sunday morning started peacefully as usual, and it's probably the only day when all, or almost all, Japanese people rest. It's a time to be with your family and deal with housework. I remembered it was Himitsu's big cleanup day. Did that mean I wouldn't see her? On the one hand, that was a good thing. We both needed to cool down. But did I feel bored? For the first time in a long while, I had a quiet day. And what did I do? Grumble at the thought that my life might finally return to its normal course? The breakfast seemed insipid and somehow wrong. After a couple minutes, I couldn't even remember what I had been eating. TV didn't entertain me with the contents of its box. I hadn't bought any new games for a while. I was bored of the old ones, and printed letters danced circles in front of my eyes. Now isn't this something? Just a week ago I could spend the entire weekend bumming around. Maybe it wasn't about being bored after all. Yesterday's events with Himitsu distracted me from the thoughts about Catherine, but nothing had really changed. Maybe I wasn't as sensitive about her being less than 1,000 miles away from me anymore, but I couldn't solve the problem by ignoring it. A phone call interrupted the disorder of my thoughts. Ooh, who is it? I forced myself to answer it. Hello? Awake so early? Weird. It took me too long really to recognize the voice. I definitely hadn't expected to hear her. You still remember my phone number? Have it written down. Oh yeah, of course. What was I hoping for? What do you want? Aren't you rude today? Woke up on the wrong side of the bed? I distinctly imagined her smirk. Rude? You bet after what happened yesterday? When she just ditched me at the bar? You mean the note? What else could I mean? You know, I even believed it for a second. I even came... She didn't answer immediately. So did I. Yeah, but you weren't there at 8, and the bartender told me that you left 3 hours before. That's correct. So suddenly, Catherine's voice grew firm. You didn't expect me to sit for 3 hours, did you? So it was just another trick of yours? No, I was waiting, in a different place, outside, but you didn't come. I did. Not at 8. Yeah, maybe it was a couple minutes late, so what? I think you had enough time. Except that I had spent that day with Himitsu in the amusement park, and therefore hadn't found the note on time. But there was no reason for Catherine to know that. I came as soon as I could. What do you want from me, then? I don't want anything. You're the one who called. You're right about that. She smirked. I guess I shouldn't have, judging by your reaction. Katya, I'm a human being too. No one doubts that. You know, maybe I am in the wrong here. All these notes and secrets, it's not my style. I figured. What do you mean? Nothing really. Just a couple of days ago, I seriously considered Catherine to be the person who had left the note at my door. As it turned out, she signs hers. Do you still want to talk? I couldn't see her face, but I wasn't sure I would have been able to read her emotions even if she'd been right in front of me. I would like to talk, but our conversations can hardly be called a dialogue of late. I'll see you in the city center in 2 hours. Okay, and don't be late this time. Catherine almost commanded me and hung up the phone. You bet I won't, I said into the silence and went to my room to dress up. I didn't fancy the idea of coming to the meeting early and spending however long wandering there alone, so I was just sitting at the doorstep looking at Himitsu's house. Today was their big cleanup day, right? For me too, perhaps. A big mental cleanup day. I could open the window and air out the smell of dead feelings, throw away my musty thoughts, scrub the rust off the wrinkles of my brain, and polish my skull. A visit to a psychiatrist is a common occurrence in American movies. It isn't as widespread in Japan, and I'm not sure whether psychologists even exist in the USSR. I could probably use one. Himitsu's father's car approached the house. I gave him a nod of greeting, and he responded likewise. I wondered, would I already have a bullet in my head if Himitsu had told him everything that had happened between the two of us lately? Or would a for sale sign appear in front of their house? Her father, Ryunosuke-san, was too Japanese. I didn't remember her mother well, but she had seemed more friendly. No wonder they ended up divorcing. It was still an hour before the meeting with Catherine. If I walked slowly, I'd be right on time. Ooh, look at this place. This is cool. I like this. Do you like this? Because I like this. I wonder if this is what, well, I guess it did. This is what Japan looked like way back in the day. This takes place, Yuki-an, in the 1980s, by the way. So, that's cool. Sometimes I thought that normal Japanese people only had 2 sets of clothes, a business suit and a casual outfit, only worn on weekends. And for their casual look, everyone went nuts. I wasn't really obsessed with fashion, but still tried not to stand out in a bad way. Although in Tokyo, a tall European guy always stands out, no matter how he's dressed. A man had approached me on the street once and gave me the business card of a modeling agency. After that, I spent an entire evening looking at myself in the mirror and trying to figure out in what way I resembled a model. The clock in the window of the shop across the street told me it was the time we'd agreed to meet at. Tick-tack, tick-tack. I almost had enough of this. Catherine was just about a half hour late. Had she decided to dump me again? Japanese people usually agree to meet at all the same places. Hey, Kato Kyle. You almost beat Chrono Cross. Kato Kyle, I needed you so badly yesterday. You have no idea. But, how you doing? It's good to see ya. Glad to see ya on this day. Near stations, at fountains, on squares, and at monuments. Why this shop then? Because this was the place where we had our first kiss. It's only going to get worse. Great. Well, now I'm really worried. At the place I was at yesterday, I had to cheat on like 90% of the bosses. I really hate the combat system in Chrono Cross. I'm sorry. I really, really, really despise it. I tried, but I just don't get it. Because this was the place where we had our first kiss. Just like that, on a busy street in the afternoon, without shame in front of everyone. Maybe it wasn't the most romantic place, but I couldn't wait anymore, and she didn't seem to mind. But it all happened so long ago, as if in a previous life, and now I was standing here, losing the last remnants of my self-respect, waiting for who knows what. Sorry. There she is. I turned around to see Catherine standing in front of me. It was strange that she appeared from that side. I thought you'd come from there. I waved my hand in the direction where her house used to be. I don't need to take the subway anymore. Miscalculated the time a little. Stellar logic. Yeah, sure. The ones who come late to school always live closest to it. A little? I've already stopped waiting for you. Then what are you doing here? She smiled. Quite genuinely, as it seemed. Chrono Cross is, like I said earlier, it's easy or hard, lol. Even on hard mode, it's getting easy for you. Because you know what everything is. For me, it's impossible. I'm never, ever, ever gonna understand the battle system. So, anytime I have to cheat on the game, I will. Ha 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 ha. Must be a habit, too. Alright, let's walk. I can see the owner of that shop giving me suspicious looks. Of course, Katya knew what shop it was when she decided. on the meeting point, but my words still made her blush and quickly lower her head. I'm playing a visual novel, Cato Kyle. It's pretty good so far. I mean, just look at these sights here. I love it. Never gets you the story. Yep. For a while, we walked in silence. To be honest, I don't even know where to start. Let's just not start this all over again for the 100th time, alright? I think we've already figured out who returned to where and why. Okay, we have. I mumbled limply. How far did you get? I'm Lynx now. I'm Lynx, and I recruited the Jester, the Blacksmith, the Old Man. I recruited quite a lot of people, actually. But yeah, that's where I am now. I didn't really have the strength to go over this again. Honestly, I just have no idea what else we should talk about. Let's enjoy the silence then. Do you need company for that? Well, we could also chat. My Japanese is a little rusty. Do you really need it though? In a year you'll be studying in college in the States. Who knows? She replied wistfully. There's no way you want to stay here. And you? Do I have a choice? There's always a choice, but most people simply don't see it. It's easy to say in your position. Sprig is great. You need to kill people with her to turn into them after. Interesting. Very cool. I'll attempt to remember that. Who is that girl? Apparently, in the past, my character used to date her, and then she moved away for a time, and then she moved back. So, XGF maybe? I think that's what she is. That's easy to say in your position. It is. One thing I always liked about Katya was her sincerity. Not honesty, no. She kept a lot to herself, even hid things. But she was never overly polite and refused to adjust herself to others. She would disagree with or even offend older people. If they were wrong, never idolized anyone remotely successful as was common here. She always had that inner strength, and to be honest, I often felt a little intimidated around her, knowing she was a stronger person than I. That had been the case back then. Now she appeared to just be an arrogant, petulant, bad-mannered girl who toyed with me, fully aware of my feelings. So what are your plans for the future? Same as before? Exactly the same as before. Nothing! Well, what did Mitsu say about that? Do you care? Somehow it seemed to me that she did. So suddenly, Catherine stopped and looked at me intently. Do you still not know anything? Know what? I felt uneasy, as if I was missing some vital detail. I don't want people to think I'm at fault here, I'm interfering in your life or relationships. The thought alone makes me feel gross, like I care. This sort of thing was typical for Catherine. She was always overly obsessed with how she appeared to other people, just imagining it. Catherine clenched her teeth angrily. Nobody's accusing you of anything. Just put yourself in my shoes. It seemed to be too much of a coincidence. Coincidence is a good way to put it. There's nothing more to it than that. Katya seemed outwittedly calm while saying that, but I was sure that in reality she was much more agitated than the day before. We can forget all this and move on. I said unexpectedly, even to myself, and stopped. Forget? She asked, startled. Well, yes, it's the best option. Nobody's at fault. Yes, things just happen. Things happen, and in the end, yeah. That was the fastest and most ridiculous ending to any war in history. We achieved peace by destroying the population of both countries. That's why you decided to meet here, right? Catherine didn't reply, didn't even give me a look. All you said was in the city center, and I came here, because it's the most convenient spot, not too far from my place or from yours. Well, it was definitely just a coincidence, nothing more than that. Here you go again. She let out a sigh, just getting a little nostalgic. I beg your pardon. I'm not going to shame you for that. Catherine pretended to look at something on the other side of the street to hide her embarrassment. That's something. You can't shame a person for their memories. It's a bad idea to point fingers to begin with. You have to start with yourself. Is that a statement or advice? Both, I guess. She paid zero attention to the obvious ambiguity of my words. Remember when you ditched a class because you had a fight with our English teacher? Yeah, he was wrong and I pointed out his mistake. In Japan, being older is more important than being right. Catherine laughed quietly. And then you followed me. Of course I did. The class was boring anyway, and I wanted to get to know you better. I guess you're not happy you know me now. Himitsu isn't, for sure. My entire life doesn't revolve around her, you know. Well, maybe it did now. Don't take that as an accusation. Quite the opposite. What about you? Is there a dashing cowboy waiting for you in the U.S.? This joke fell flat, and she didn't respond right away. Hang on a minute. Okay. Didn't respond right away. No. Sorry. It's none of my business. I wasn't looking for one. I told you it's none of my business. So you're not interested at all? Katya finally stopped and gave me a curious look. I don't know how to respond to that. Relax, it was a joke. You and your jokes. By the way, do you want to drop by? Catherine pointed at a building entrance next to us. Do you live here now? What was this? It's more convenient than before, isn't it? Yeah, closer to our school. Wouldn't your mother mind me coming in? She's at work. Ah, is that so? I have a feeling you're misinterpreting the situation. I can't imagine how else I wouldn't interpret it. Okay, once again, I just don't want to be considered. I'm just being polite. It's Japanese hospitality. Yeah, you and I are very Japanese. Catherine smiled slightly, which somehow calmed me down. Maybe it was time to stop pretending she was Hitler. She must have felt somewhat guilty as well. Alright, let's go. Ooh, what a nice room this is, huh? Catherine lived in a pretty large apartment with a very tiny TV. Look at that thing. A place that's spacious in the middle of a Tokyo can only be afforded by very wealthy people or high-ranking diplomats. Not that the Winters family had much to complain about even in the past. They used to live in a decent multi-family housing block, although not in the most prestigious of districts. Did that mean that her mother had been promoted? Sit down already, Catherine said, clearly displeased by me studying her guest room for far too long. Everything looks so European. Do you find it weird? Not really. Do you want some coffee, tea? I still couldn't figure out why Catherine had invited me here in the first place. No, thank you. Stop acting like you're being interrogated. She smiled. You would make a good policewoman. Noted, thanks. So what did you want to talk about? We should have talked right away. I guess you're right about that. I remained silent, afraid to interrupt when she was speaking so candidly. Besides, I don't want you to think I did something wrong. I don't want anyone to think that. Because I didn't. She gave me a furious look, as if I was objecting. Kyosuke must have told everyone at school. Come on, he wouldn't. Of course he did. But then why would she transfer to our school at all? I couldn't ask that question right now, as much as I wanted to. You are a terrible liar. Didn't feel like the first time someone told me as much. Terrible because you have nothing to lie about. Because nothing happens in my life? Isn't that true? Do you want to teach me, or... Katya stood at the side of the room looking out the window with a sad expression, her arms folded over her chest. I'm not rushing you, just put yourself in my shoes. I can't, not because I don't want to, I simply can't. I don't know your situation. She smiled slightly and shifted her gaze to me. You think I'm such a bitch, don't you? I don't. Sometimes very often I don't really understand you. Neither do I. I don't know what'll happen next. You think I have it easy? But you're responsible for your own life. Nobody can take you halfway around the world, make a piece of luggage just because that's the job. I know you don't like it here. Don't like it? Catherine smirked bitterly. I have maybe one good memory of this country. What is it? Suddenly, her expression changed. Maybe you'd still like some tea. Well, all right. Refusing twice would have just been impolite. Katya quickly walked into the kitchen, leaving me alone in the living room. What was she talking about? It seemed I was beginning to understand why she had invited me here, but was too afraid to admit it even to myself. So as to not be even more disappointed afterward, she would come back with hot tea in hand, cold and arrogant once again, and I would only be able to think about how the two of us were about to make up. Maybe she simply didn't know what she wanted. I stood up and walked around the room. It was spotless, though not really that big. A phone hung on the wall, and a small piece of paper with the telephone number was stuck next to it. I guess she hadn't memorized this number yet. I quickly grabbed a pen from the table and wrote the number on my hand. Catherine kept the place tidy, only a few notebooks carelessly scattered on the table, standing out of the general picture. I picked up one of them and flipped through it. Modern Japanese language. For a hard-working student with far-reaching plans to enroll in a prestigious college, she made too many mistakes, although I doubted she would need Japanese in the U.S. I looked more carefully. The way she wrote some kanji looked familiar to me. Was Katya's handwriting similar to Kyosuke's? No, not really. It was too even. I started to turn over the pages feverishly, looking for certain words. Your, you, grave, people. Kanji and hiragana on the pages before me started to form into sentences. Nikolai-san, be careful. You are in grave danger. Certain very powerful people linked to your father are after you. It's not a prank or a hoax. Uh-oh. No doubt about it, that note was written in the same handwriting. On the notebook's cover, in the same neat manner, was written, Catherine Winters. But how? Why? I started feverishly flipping through other notebooks. It was all the same. But back then, during the break, I was sure the handwriting was different. I heard steps coming from the kitchen and got scared out of my mind. Sorry it took so long. I don't usually drink tea, and you aren't a big fan of coffee. What's the matter with you? Catherine asked, startled. Apparently I looked weird, putting it mildly. Nothing. Good thing I managed to put the notebooks back the way they had been. Are you sure? You look like you've just seen a ghost. She smiled and put the cup on the table. I couldn't force myself to pick it up, and as I could feel my hands shaking. Suddenly, I felt terrified of being in the same room with this girl. I was absolutely sure that the note wasn't a prank or a hoax. It would have been completely out of character for Catherine. If she had decided to write something like this, it was serious, whether it was a threat or warning. Nikolai? Yeah, sorry, I just remembered I've got some stuff to do. Katya looked at me carefully, but didn't say a word. Very urgent stuff, I need to... Even under other circumstances, I would have hardly been able to come up with something urgent to do, especially something I somehow forgot about. Catherine would never believe me, like she didn't believe now. You don't feel comfortable being here? She asked in a detached voice. No, don't say that, I just... Right when I finally decided to talk to you. Off you go. Katya finished coldly, nodding toward the exit. Yeah, thank you. Bye. See you at school tomorrow. It took considerable effort to not break into a run. For those that don't know what's happening, there was a mysterious note that said, you're in grave danger, you're gonna die or something. And apparently, maybe it was Catherine who wrote that note. So what the heck's happening? When I left the building, I realized that it was hard to breathe. My heart was pounding furiously, and it took some time to come to my senses. I wondered if she was watching me out of the window. Luckily, I was standing under a canopy, but I was standing for way too long, suspiciously long. Trying to keep a steady pace, I walked away from Catherine's house. I felt better among other people, away from her. Why did I react like this? Yeah, I didn't want to think that Catherine would have made fun of me this way, but she changed so much in over half a year. And if she really wanted to warn me about something, the note mentioned my father's work. I doubted Katya had anything to do with it, but her mother... I slowly walked around from the ever-busy center of Tokyo, and soon skyscrapers gave way to small houses, huddled together. It was quiet here as always, and more importantly, it was serene. Catherine would have liked it. Maybe she just wanted to take revenge on me. But why would she invite me to her apartment and try to explain something? I still couldn't fully believe she was the one to write that note. And what about the call? The voice had been clearly male. Even if I assumed it was all Katya's idea, what, was she an evil genius with a gang of henchmen at hand? Of course, everything could be much simpler. I could be simply overthinking it and made absurd assumptions. But then, why had my life been going its normal course until just a week ago? And now everything was going down the road to hell. Still, this day would soon end and a new one would begin. The few people on the street walked with smiles on their faces. Sunday was possibly their only day off in the entire week, so why would they be happy about going to work tomorrow? If I were to rethink the flow of Japanese life from Catherine's perspective, everything would seem much more depressing than I usually saw it. But was that really enough to treat me like she had? He only reached home a half an hour later. It was stupid to think that Himitsu was waiting for me. Inside, there was only silence, even more deafening in contrast with the outside, where the evening's birds sang their songs. I walked to the kitchen and poured a glass of water and froze in something akin to delirium. What next? What was I supposed to do? How was I supposed to live? The note. I stormed to my room and took the note out of the drawer. Yes, the handwriting was definitely the same. There was no doubt that the note had been written by Catherine. I didn't even care for the why of it anymore. The only thing I wanted to know was, why me? Well, why was she doing this to me? Why did she keep doing this to me? But I still couldn't shake off the thought of our conversation in her apartment today. She just didn't resemble a sadist or a spy. What if her handwriting was faked? But what for? I continued coming up with theories, all based on my extraordinary importance. Maybe mostly because otherwise it meant Katya was doing all this out of resentment toward me, maybe seeking revenge. I didn't want to believe that. I simply couldn't force myself to. The ringing of the phone sounded peaceful, casual, but I flinched out of habit. It wasn't even evening yet. It seemed a bit early for assassins, spies, or any other dissidents. Hello? My voice sounded unusual, unnatural even to myself. Nick, are you alright? Why would Michael need me now? Never better. Well, if you say so. He continued after a short pause. It wasn't in his character to pry. So you didn't forget anything? No, what am I supposed to have forgotten? We were planning to go to the cinema. We were? I really didn't remember anything like that. Maybe we actually did. Most likely at school. He asked and I agreed without even realizing what he was talking about. These days I only thought of one thing. Yeah, right. Let's go another time. I have a headache and tomorrow we have classes, so... Didn't even want to come up with a believable excuse. In a situation like this, Michael would be as tactful as possible no matter what. Alright, see you tomorrow then. So long. I hung up and stared at the front door. I could have asked her what was going on. I was pretty sure Katya wouldn't have killed me there and then. Suddenly, I remember that I was missing something, a tiny detail, a trifle that was necessary to put this puzzle together. Or was it all just a dream? At the time, 1.5 years ago, I often imagined that nothing had changed. I'd wake up the next day and everything would be the way it used to. Catherine hadn't gone anywhere. We were together and loved each other. And everything that had happened in reality was just another nightmare. It turned out that my nightmare went on to become more horrifying with every minute, and not waking up at all would have been the better option. I could have tried to find consolation with Himitsu, but after yesterday, and then suddenly I felt better. If only someone could see me now, what a pathetic sight. Yeah, I've always been prone to agonizing over my thoughts, but I'd never sunk to the point of self-pity, to this disgusting feeling that manifests when you think that the entire world is to blame and everyone is against you. A car stopped at Himitsu's house. Her father was back. Hadn't this already happened today? Recurring events, there have been too many of them during the past 1.5 years. The same day every day, the same day every month, the same day year to year, and in the end a noose hanging from the ceiling of a 6 tatami room. Type of mat uses a flooring material in traditional Japanese-style rooms. A room's floor space usually measured in tatami in Japan, which taking into account when building houses. A single tatami is 95.5 centimeters, 37.6 inches wide, and 191 centimeters, 75.2 inches long. Cool. Although I wasn't sure I'd even manage to properly hang myself, tall as I was. If things continued on the same course, even Himitsu would have had enough and leave me. The life itself was pulling me out of the putrid swamp by my hair and pushing me forward along the yellow brick road. My companions, the Tin Man and the Scarecrow, perhaps Toto as well. Wonder if they would have liked the comparison. But in order to move forward, you have to make decisions. For example, talk to Catherine about the note. But not today. Today I was too tired. Sunday night was descending upon Tokyo, a night that provided a chance to get that final bit of fun before Monday. The craziest and most desperate fun. So half an hour later, I stood at the doors of the familiar bar. There's a dude here. Inside it was loud, filled with smoke and reeking of booze. It was normal for the Japanese to have a drink or two after work, when hanging out with friends or on a date. It was considered acceptable, sometimes even obligatory. What kind of corporate event would it be without eating and drinking? The only problem was that most of them had little to no tolerance for alcohol. 2 or 3 beers were usually enough to take them out, call a taxi, or carry them home on your back. That's why I didn't like drinking with the Japanese. No matter what, in an hour's time you were left alone. At that point, you're just wasting booze. Oi, Kolya! Bartender's greeting reached me through the noises of the crowd. He peeked over the heads of the people at the counter. Why had I chosen this bar and come here so often? I couldn't say it was close to my house, and the bar sort of resembled a Soviet Ryumachnoya. It's a type of snack bar that was popular in the USSR and mostly served strong alcoholic drinks. Hey, Mafia babe. Welcome back. You missed some startling developments and stuff. But, we're here, we're in the bar, we're chilling out, and all is good? All is maybe good? Yep. Remember that, note at the beginning of the game that said, your life is in danger, your father's job is gonna make you die, or something like that? Remember that note? And definitely not because of the bartender. You do remember that note? There is a big, big possibility that Catherine is the one that wrote it. I mean, he could be just going crazy, the main character, but, we have a suspect now. Hey there, what can I get ya? I'll go for whiskey, double whiskey. Wow, something happened? Yeah, life happened. Is it that bad? Worse than usual. I'd love to hear about it, but work is aplenty, as you can see. He smiled apologetically, poured me a glass, and was about to take the bottle away, when I stopped him by carefully grabbing his arm. Leave it be. I'm partying tonight. Kolya, do you know how much this whiskey costs? I don't, and I don't care. You have nothing over 5,000 yen anyway. True enough. Bartender guffawed and raced to the other end of the bar to greet a just-arrived middle-aged man with reddish cheeks. Without the bartender around, there was a little sense sitting at the counter, so I moved to a free table. A waitress approached me right away. It could be found here on the weekends, but I coldly told her I wasn't hungry and didn't let her slip me a menu. Watching the drinking layman was kind of entertainment, too. They didn't really care about being overheard by others. Many shouting as loudly as they could. Visiting any bar in Tokyo on Sunday evening, you might learn that sales manager Ibashi secretly hates his boss, that Secretary Minomi-chan cheats on her husband, and Big Boss Toki-san fears so much for his children's future, and he can't sleep properly. The next day, they'd all go to work in a good mood, even if they couldn't manage to recall what they'd done or said the night before. Looked at the full bottle of whiskey, and as for me, oh, is this seat taken? A young woman in a strict red business suit was standing in front of me. A European. I looked around the pub and realized that there were no other free seats. No. Oh, sorry, She left and put down one of the complicated cocktails from the bartender's vast collection. It is rare to meet a non-Japanese person here. Oh, I didn't mean, it's my first time here and I don't know you. Sorry again. She was clearly tipsy, laughed a lot, and had entered this condition where a decent lady needs but half a glass of champagne to become a chiffonier. Highly sophisticated, but still a piece of furniture. Nonetheless, I was glad to have company, especially a woman's. My entire life couldn't revolve around two girls who didn't know what they want. I guess you're right, we're probably the only Europeans who have visited this bar in its entire history. Not counting the bartender, of course. I smiled, trying to look friendly. Do you come here often? She looked to be about 25, perhaps older. Sometimes. So you like this place? I'd been asking myself the same question a couple minutes ago. It's more than like I'm used to it. Interesting, she said vaguely and riveted her eyes on me. You must be a student? Yes, sort of. For some reason, I couldn't lie persuasively to her and started to avert my eyes. I couldn't say I was just a high schooler. Todai? One of Japan's most famous and prestigious universities. Wow. How did you guess? It just seems that your kind of handsome and intelligent young man must study there. She abruptly stretches her hand out to me. Irene Dupont. Parlez-vous Francis? I was embarrassed but responded with a handshake. Nikolai Anokin. Oh, so you're from the USSR? And without letting me say a word, continued. You like her hair? Very cool, like I wouldn't know how to get hair like this. Moscow is a wonderful city. I've been there. The Kremlin, the Red Square. Are you from Moscow? Maybe from Leningrad? The magnificent place. fabulous museums. Are you from there? Second largest city, presently known as St. Petersburg. Aha! You could say I'm from there. Oh, that's interesting. I've just arrived recently. Strange, I could barely hear an accent. I work as an attached at the embassy. Everything here is so... Irene spread her arms, clearly showing how exactly so everything was. But unfortunately, I don't really have much free time. Like today, we went out with my Japanese colleagues, but I lost them already. What a goofball. She broke into loud laughter. Can you imagine? It happens. I was flattered by the attention of a girl like this. Or should I say, a woman. Her beauty wasn't the same kind as the girls I knew. Maybe Ellie. But even she liked Irene's mature charm. So here I am now, sitting all alone. Oh, sorry, I meant to say with you. Of course with you. She covered my hand with hers. Thank you, Nikolai, for accepting this poor city mademoiselle. Thanks to you, too. But enough about me. What about you? What do you study? She straightened up and removed her hand. Well, I don't even know. What a dumb thing to say. We just have some general subjects for now. I haven't chosen my major yet. Maybe something in liberal arts. Can you do that? She asked with a surprise. That's what I would have really liked to know myself. Of course, it's Todai after all. It's good to be young, Irene said. I decided it was my opportunity. Come on now. If not for your suit, I think you were a student as well. She laughed. Do they make diplomas work on the weekends too? Diplomats? On weekends and holidays and, believe it or not, on July 14th. In Paris, France, the revolutionary insurgents stormed and seized control of the medieval armory, fortress and political prison known as the Bastille. At the time, the Bastille represented the royal authority in the center of Paris. Since then, the 14th of July has been celebrated as France's National Day. Cool. Even July 14th? That's going too far. Yeah, not like in the USSR at all. Workers' rights, the International. Let's sing, Nikolai. Irene, I don't think that. Come on, they're singing their enkas. How are we worse? Japanese style of music that culturally resembles Russian's romance, American country music, and Portuguese fado. A drunk group in the corner was indeed tunelessly belting out a love song. I don't think we'll be misunderstood. Do you care about other people's opinions so much? Don't you? You're a diplomat. For a second she froze, her eyes cleared up, a certain awareness and even coldness appeared in her gaze. But the next moment she burst out laughing again. My God, I am so drunk. Nikolai, has anyone ever told you that you are handsome? I'd be lying if I said no. Then can I also say that? I didn't know what to think. Half an hour ago I considered myself an adult, or at least was sure that I could behave like an adult in any situation. Now it turned out that it took one drunk French girl in a dilapidated bar to shatter these assumptions. On the other hand, Irene looked very attractive, even too attractive. While talking, I managed to turn down a third of the bottle, and by then would have set sights even on Saya-chan. Nikolai, you are looking at me so... The whiskey washed away the last remnants of my timidness. That's the way anyone would look at a beautiful woman like you if they were in my place. Nikolai, you're saying this to a woman you've just met. But our acquaintance doesn't have to end here, does it? Irene blushed, now seemingly from more than just alcohol, and leaning toward me, whispered in my ear, Let's get out of here. My hands were shaking when I dropped a few large bills on the table. Please, monsieur. She stood up unsteadily and stumbled for the exit. I leapt to her immediately and offered a hand when she grabbed runaway and sagged against. Very strange, huh, Mafia babe? Very strange this is right now. Finally, fresh air. When we emerged onto the street, she made a deep breath and pressed herself to me. We should catch a car. I know somebody would stop. Watch and learn. She laughed, walked closer to the roadway and waved her hand. I couldn't believe my eyes when a minute later a car stopped next to her. And what a car! An executive black sedan. Apparently I wasn't the only one struck by her beauty. Hop in. Irene called to me merrily. Well, it seemed that the fairy godmother had lost her magic wand in a bet, because Cinderella was going to come back from the ball with company, and what's more, in a carriage instead of a pumpkin. Oh, hi. At first, I didn't even pay attention to the fact that the car's windows were blacked out. So who is this? Will she be important later on, guys? Or is she just existing for this one scene? Pay attention to the car's windows were blacked out. Well, Nikolai, you were obviously not pretending, Irene said calmly. What? Let's go. She nodded into the driver and looked at me with such antipathy. I started fidgeting in the seat. Irene, what's going on? Her drunk joyfulness vanished without a trace. My name is Irina Mostovaya. Major Irina Mostovaya. I'm a KGB USSR. And only then did I realize she was speaking Russian. Oh, she's kidnapping me? Cool! We're being kidnapped, maybe! With no hint of an accent. I mean, yeah, why would a Russian girl have an accent? No matter how long you learn a language that is different from your own mother tongue, no matter how long you live in a foreign country, it will always be clear you weren't born and raised there. Oh, gosh. That's how it seemed to me, at least. Is this a joke? I still didn't fully realize what was happening. That's what I'd like to ask you. What does this have to do with me? Do you really not recognize me? She frowned. No, should I? Never mind. From here on, you only answer my questions and only with relevant and concise answers. Do you know what happened to your parents? We got in a car accident. They died. I remember I was sitting in the back, so I survived. Is that not true? I am the one asking questions here. And if you want to hear the answers, I expect a dialogue. I said with unexpected determination. Irene bit her lip angrily. Yes, they died in a car accident, but their death wasn't a coincidence. That's all you need to know for now. Why do you know about their work? Or what do you know? So my parents were murdered because of their work? Yes. She gave a short response. Kobayashi Corporation. Well, it wasn't a question. So what do you know? I know nothing. You're interrogating the wrong person. I'm just a student, and what's more, an orphan. You must already have realized that Kobayashi Corporation wouldn't be interested in a mere student. But why me? Irina didn't respond. Tokyo was slowly moving by on the other side of the windows. I had no idea where we were going, and I didn't care. I was unlikely they were going to kill me. The performance in the bar was probably just a test. To my surprise, I was able to think clearly and analyze the situation with a sober mind. That's what we'd like to find out. So all these calls to my house, were they made by the corporation? No, they were from us. We wanted to warn you. But you didn't feel compelled to heed our warnings. What should I do then? Are you sure you don't want anything? Think again. Maybe your father told you something and you forgot about it. Or maybe he left something to you. Papers, documents? No. I really couldn't recall anything like that. We're a completely normal family. So in your view, a family of Soviet engineers who fled the USSR and started working for the biggest transnational company in Japan is normal? Irina smirked. Apart from that, everything was normal. Was it? Or do you simply not remember? Even if... I couldn't believe my parents had been involved in something that they could be killed for. Even if what you say is true, I don't know anything about that. I've never known. I find that hard to believe. You can believe whatever you want. She started using the polite version of Russian you without thinking. But still, it was all clearly related to me somehow. To my family. Catherine's note. Having them believe as much was already enough. Nikolai. Irina sighed. Have you completely forgotten about your obligation to our motherland? I don't remember having any in the first place. Her eyes flashed, but she managed to stay calm and continued. So you think you have it better here, in the country that killed your parents? Why should I trust you anyway? Better? I don't know, but until recently, I've been living a peaceful life, before you dragged me into this. We didn't drag you into anything. On the contrary, we're trying to protect you. What wonderful protection. What does it amount to exactly? Irina sighed. In order to receive something, you need to give something in return first. But I don't have anything. Stop mocking me. She sounded suddenly. You know everything. Just tell me what the Japanese want, and we can bring you home. Or do you think you managed to fool me? Why would you think they need something from me, if you were the ones who called? And the note was written by Catherine. At the moment, it's none of your business. Then what do you expect from me? Irene calmed down in an instant and studied me with an unblinking stare for some time. Fine, we'll handle it ourselves. You keep your head down. Stay away from all this. That's it? That's simple? Hey, David. You got a workable cloning glitch for VC Silver. What's that? What's VC Silver? But how you doing today? It's good to see ya. Hopefully all is well. Would you like it to be complicated? I still have questions, which won't be answered if you want to live. Virtual console. Cool. Well, enjoy that, David. Make sure you don't get sucked into the virtual world. Ha ha ha. If you're telling the truth, then the less you know, the better. Only sources of information have value. Ordinary students are of no interest to anyone, but be prepared to remain under surveillance for a while. You can clone Pokemons and items. Cool. Isn't that cheating, though? Wait a minute. By you? Us, among others. Or do you want an accident to happen to you as well? I felt a strong dislike toward this woman. I couldn't believe that just 5 minutes ago I had been hoping for some quick sex with a random acquaintance. Although in a way, I got what I wanted. Except I was the one getting One more thing. Behave normally. No one should know we've talked. Anything can expose you. Go to school, hang out with your girlfriends, drink, if nothing else. The car stops smoothly. You've arrived. Get out. I can make out the silhouette of my house behind the window. Hope Himitsu didn't see me brought home like this. I had the time to think. And keep in mind, we do not repeat ourselves. So do me yourself a favor and remember everything I've just told you. Very strange. Oops, you went from 1 EXP share, 1 rare candy to 4 and 20 rare candies. That's a lot. Whatever game you're playing, I think you can beat it very easily now. But yeah, the cool stuff, David. I stood at the entrance to my yard, mindlessly watching it go. That's when I started to shake. Almost spasm in fear. How had I managed to remain outwardly calm and think straight? My legs carried me to my house on their own accord. Oh, Pokemon Silver Virtual Console. That's pretty cool. Yeah, enjoy it. Enjoy it, my friend. Enjoy it. And, enjoy the 3D virtualness. I closed the door. The end. And the garden door. And another one. And all the windows. I had so many windows. I wish I had a gun. I lay in bed staring into the darkness with dry eyes. It was obvious that the Czechs wouldn't come back. At least not today. And what about the Japanese? If they kept me under surveillance, they could have seen me hop into that car. The only hope I had was that those KGB agents knew what they were doing. Catherine, what did you drag me into? Making a lot of rare candies. That's pretty cool, David. Just don't level up your Pokies too much, or they'll start to hate you. My parents and I were returning from a countryside trip. We wanted to see the Japanese outdoors, observe the sakura blossoms. My father talked non-stop, but I wasn't listening to him. All my thoughts were centered around Catherine. We hadn't seen each other much over the break. I wondered if she missed me. I sure did. Mostly they think because I could stay at her place till late, as Miss Winters would usually come home long after midnight, so we could sit, lie, and stand in the bedroom, guest room, bathroom, or even the hallway, with walls thin enough to hear the neighbors walk by. Got 7? Wow, you're doing good. You're doing quite well, David. To hear the neighbors. Are you listening to me? My father shouted. But I had other things on my mind. And then I woke up in a hospital. Bruises, abrasions, and a broken arm. Things could be way worse. Maybe if I had been listening to him. Well. People always say it's better to sleep on it. Bullshit! Especially if you couldn't actually sleep the whole night. In this case, trying to sleep on it didn't help at all. I could barely think straight. In the past 8 hours, I'd imagined virtually everything. Being interrogated in the confines of the KGB, being exposed to ancient Japanese torture by people from the corporation, just being executed by a single shot to the head. Is before you learned of this glitch? Cool. So you're way ahead. I gotcha. It was all wrong. A human being can't feel fear constantly. At some point, the mind's defense mechanisms kick in, and you simply stop caring about everything that might happen to you. As unexpectedly, I realized that I was worried about Himitsu much more than about my own life. She was the closest person I had, meaning that they could get to her as well. Catherine? Her mother could protect her, and somehow I was confident that she could take care of herself. A weak and cowardly person wouldn't have written that note, wouldn't have cared someone other than herself. Was she really worried about me? A pleasant shiver ran through my entire body, a sensation that I had seemingly long forgotten. What if she had her own circumstances I simply knew nothing about? And then, could I lose her too? It was incredibly difficult to answer the who do I love question even to myself. Especially in my current condition, there was only one thing I knew for sure. Both of them were important to me. Now more than ever. I rolled to my other side and looked at the clock. It was still pretty early, but I no longer had the energy to stay in. I could try to fall asleep, but Irina had given me clear instructions to behave as usual, which meant not skipping classes without a good reason. A hangover could be one, but I simply didn't have enough time yesterday to reach that point. Wobbling and grasping at the walls, I managed to walk into the kitchen. Coffee would be nice, but I'd never liked it, so I never had any at home. Only had tea and aspirin. Surprisingly, my head didn't ache. I sat down on a chair and came to my senses only a minute later. I had been staring thoughtlessly in front of me. Complete exhaustion. Maybe not coffee, but I definitely had school. Just a couple of glasses that would make me sleep like a log. Irina's furious expression surfaced in my mind. I think she believed in me, although she didn't want to. She thought I was hiding something, lying to her. God, was this really happening? I pinched myself until I bled. No, not a dream. Somehow hot tea brought me back to my senses. Was it time to prepare for school? Although I didn't really have anything to prepare. My homework wasn't done, and I had no idea what classes I was even supposed to have today. Days were becoming shorter. It would have already been light outside at this hour a week ago. I was slowly walking the familiar route, occasionally looking over my shoulder, but not too obviously. Someone could be watching me. Someone probably was, if that's what Irina had said. So the KGB were around the corner. There were corporation goons behind the fence, and Japanese counterintelligence in the bushes. I smirked despite myself. People say you can find a positive side to any situation. I had once started to write a novel, then dropped it. It was about love, sure. But what would stop me from adding a detective subplot? Hey, Geek and Rat. How you doing today? It's good to see ya. Welcome to more visual novel. But how you doing? Well, here is something positive about a poor student being the prey to the powers that be. A Soviet-Japanese student, like a mini Tom Clancy. Thomas Leo Clancy Jr. was an American novelist. He is best known for his technical detailed espionage and military science storylines set during and after the Cold War, alternatively history stories and techno-thriller. Didn't he make video games or something? I thought that's what he was. Tom Clancy's the something or whatever. Except I didn't have a submarine to give to Americans and thus escape. I walked into the classroom and sat behind my desk. Was I the first in class today? Probably for the first time in my life. It would have taken long for me to start volunteering to go to the blackboard, get straight A's, and hang myself in the Hall of Fame. Unless, of course, someone would hang me first in a less crowded place. A head of red hair appeared in the doorway. Oh! Nico-kun, are you here? Imagine that. I responded loudly. Why are you sneaking around? Nobody's here yet. Oh yeah, sorry. Himitsu laughed and walked to my desk. You weren't home this morning. Yeah, I couldn't sleep and decided to go to school early. Good. She smiled cutely. Good that you decided to not to skip classes. Me? Skipping? I would never do that. I'm determined to become a straight A student and get into the top 10. Hang on a minute. Okay. You're, probably exaggerating. Fine, the top 20 then. Mitsu took a little parcel out of her backpack. Here. Bento! Thank you. I was truly moved. Whatever had happened in my life, only Himitsu's feelings toward me remained the same. Feelings I neither appreciated nor deserved. I wondered what would have happened if back then No, I didn't want to know. Not at all. Are you okay? You look a bit weird today. I told you you didn't sleep well. Himitsu looked at me suspiciously, but clearly couldn't find a reason to pry further. Well, all right. Are we going home together? What about lunch? I can't make it this time. Sorry. Have something to do with my classmates. Well, alright. See you then. See you. She smiled genuinely again and walked away. What did I even need a Catherine for? Students gradually started to fill the classroom. Many of them gave me surprised looks. Had they not expected to see Anokin this early, or at all? Paying no attention to anyone in his path, Kyosuke breezed into the classroom and started to cheerfully greet all the guys. Michael calmly sat behind his desk and opened one of his books. I thought that I should probably ask him at some point what is it he reads all the time. I was constantly looking at the clock. There were just a few minutes left before the bell, but... And here came Catherine. She passed by saying nothing but a short, "Hi." I couldn't say she looked normal. I didn't even know what normal was for her anymore and what wasn't. I didn't know anything about her. Didn't know her. The conversation with Irina and this whole spy thriller business shifted my mind away from Catherine and my never-ending romantic indecision. But I knew perfectly well that the main source of agitation for me was not the note itself, but the fact that Katya had to been the one to write it. Of course, there was a chances she'd written it with good intentions. She may have wanted to warn me about something, but really, it was like we were playing a goddamn game of charades. The lesson seemed to last forever. I wasn't listening to the teacher at all, focusing on my own thoughts. I had to decide what to do from now on. Keep my head down and act normally as per Irina's advice, or try to find something out as per common sense. Yes, it's Catherine. Is Catherine evil? Is she protecting me? Who knows at this point? Maybe I was just a student, but I didn't want to trust other people with the right determination, with the right to determine my destiny like a cow on a farm. If I was lucky, the BB gun would break and I'd be allowed a couple extra days of grazing. Or maybe they'd handle me the traditional way, locked out with a sledgehammer. And though I had no one to ask about the KGB, there was someone other than Ellie I could ask about the corporation. During lunch, I approached Michael and offered to eat together with him. Great, let's go! Only one way to find out. Keep reading! Kyosuke had been hovering nearby, apparently waiting for the right moment. You know, we have something to discuss. He looked at me with surprise. Adult stuff, not anime, you want to understand. Screw you! Michael didn't react to my somewhat strange behavior in any way. Who the heck is this person? What a strange being that is. I found a spot behind a vacant table, put Himitsu's bento in front of me, and waited for Michael. Soon he returned with a tray in his hands and took a seat opposite from me. Pretty quick today. Yes, almost no queen. I don't know how to say that. No Q. Lucky you, he said calmly, pointing at my bento. Yeah, happens. I grinned like an idiot. The canteen was too busy, so I proposed we finished our food quick and went up to the roof. Hey, the boys hanging out, am I right? How was your weekend? Not quite as planned. What happened? Movies. He replied briefly. Oh yeah, sorry. I get it. You must be having a lot of problems. What makes you think that? It's pretty obvious. Obvious, is it? I'm like an open book to you. Cute. Something like that. So what do you want to talk about? You didn't invite Kyosuke. Something serious? I still hadn't decided whether I could trust Michael, and if I did, then to what extent. Of course, telling him the whole truth would be a mistake, but if I wanted his help, I had to at least give him a general idea of the situation. Your father's work is related to Kobayashi Corporation, right? I'd say his company is just a business partner. What do they even do in this corporation? What kind of business? Michael looked surprised. What kind? All kinds. It's a transnational company, remember? You'll never stop being amazed by the art in this game. Oh yeah. You should see the other game too. Everlasting Summer. You should look it up on Steam whenever you can. Everlasting Summer. They work with virtually everything, from stuffed animals to satellites. Well, that was already clear. Okay, what does your father's company do? Construction. What kind? Civil construction. That was close, but not quite it. I noted my parents were killed over a poorly designed bridge. Got it, thanks. Should I even ask why you're interested? Okie dokie. It should be on Steam, by the way. my old playthrough of it is on YouTube. Probably not. I can ask my father something if you want. How was I supposed to respond to that? If what Michael said was true, it was unlikely that his father was connected to the corporation's shady dealings. No need, I don't think it will help me much. Nick, if you're involved in something dangerous, it might be better to talk to. He went silent for a second, remembering my family situation. An adult? Yeah, right. Adults haven't helped me much lately. In fact, adults had dragged me into this. I hope you know what you're doing. Me too. With the conversation seemingly over, Michael was about to return to our classroom. I'll hang around a bit longer. You go ahead. Sure. He shrugged. Ooh, the top of the school. Very cool. I wonder where Catherine had her lunch. I never saw her with the bento. I didn't recall her ever cooking herself. Started to feel sleepy again. Luckily, the canteen had coffee. A few gulps of this nasty sour swill woke me up in an instant. Just like Japanese people had low tolerance for alcohol, I had relatively low tolerance for caffeine. My heart was beating so hard it felt like I'd just run a 100-meter dash. Walking through the school corridors, I felt almost safe. After all, this place had too many people to what? Irina had told me that a resource that possesses information is a valuable resource. Therefore, it would be worthwhile to increase my value, and hence my chance of survival, by obtaining information. I returned to the classroom and was interrogated by Kyosuke almost immediately. So, what? How did the lunch go? Fine. Good for you. He made an annoyed face, clearly expecting me to apologize, or at least feel guilty. Talk about this another time, okay? For the rest of the day, I could only think about one thing. To be more precise, about a number of things that had recently brought variety into my life. May you live in interesting times, was it? I felt uncomfortable knowing that Catherine was sitting behind me. What if she was staring at my back all the time? What was she thinking about? What was she doing? Maybe she was writing another note? Drinking that coffee was a mistake. I could have slept during class. I doubted anyone would try to wake me up. Such behavior was the norm for Nikolai Anokin, and fighting it was as effective as jousting windmills. Irina told me to behave normally. If only I knew where the border of normalcy was drawn. How do I be normal, Mafia babe? Class was finally over. The crowd at the shoe lockers was full of happy chatter. Some were about to go to the movies, some to karaoke, and some on dates. I changed my shoes and walked into the schoolyard, stopped for a minute, and felt infinitely alone as I watched students quickly walk past, paying zero attention to me, like a yellow leaf in a river caught on a piece of wood. But I wasn't the only one in this position. Catherine was standing at the gates, clearly waiting for someone with a bored expression on her face. You have no clue either. What even is normal? She wasn't looking in my direction, but I wasn't moving either. Simply because I didn't know what to say. Not to mention I outright hadn't slept in 2 nights and didn't have the mental energy to come up with something sensible to start a conversation with. Though I wasn't just afraid to approach her, I feared even to appear in her line of sight. Was I afraid she'd notice me? Was I afraid to simply walk out of the school gates, leave the safe territory? Finally, a car stopped near Catherine, and she got in. Since when was Catherine picked up from school like that, I wondered. And everyone here had a personal driver. I couldn't remember Mrs. Winters doing anything like that before. Could she be in danger too? Nico-kun! Himitsu's cheerful voice came from behind me. I flinched in surprise and turned around. How was the bento? She asked, running up to me. Very good, thanks. I wouldn't be able to say what it had been in it, even if my life depended on it. Definitely had some rice, though. How was your day? Very tiring. I wondered if she saw me stand there and staring at Catherine. What about you? Wonderful. We're getting ready for the school festival. Our class wants to make a cafe. For a second, she fell silent, embarrassed. You think I'd look good in a maid outfit? I'm sure you would. Will you come by? We'll have cupcakes and shortcakes and layer cakes too. I'm already practicing cooking them at home, but I'm not letting you try any yet, just in case. Himitsu laughed and I looked absolutely innocent. So much so that I found it hard to look at her. What's your class gonna do? For the school festival, you mean? As if I knew. We're putting on The Prince and the Pauper. Really? No. Hey, we haven't decided yet. Graduation class, you know, it's exams and all that. I lied. Let's go. Let's go, maybe. I took Himitsu by the hand and left the schoolyard, looking straight ahead. Nico-kun. She weakly tried to protest, but her hand did not let go of mine. Himitsu kept telling me about her class's plans for the school festival, but I wasn't really listening. Why was Catherine picked up by a car? Was that a one-time thing, or would this happen always from now on? She couldn't have not noticed that yesterday I was basically in panic when I fled her apartment. Kaia was a smart girl and would probably draw the right conclusions. To add to that, whatever reason she had to leave the note, Catherine clearly knew more than I. Hello, to Nico-kun. Huh? What? You're sleeping on your feet, Mitsu said kindly. That's exactly it. Maybe you should have stayed home today after all. Yeah, I'd tell that to Irina. Nope, definitely shouldn't have. Definitely not today. Why not? I looked at Himitsu's beautiful, surprised face and I knew what I had to do. I had to tell her what happened yesterday. Because she too could be in danger. Because she was the only person in the whole world whom I could trust. I love you, I said seriously. She stopped and froze with an expression of utter shock in her face. Nico-kun? Need to talk. Need to tell you something important. Himitsu's expression saddened. Strange. I was sure she'd be glad about the confession. Why do you say this now? It's not true. Let's go. We'll talk at home. Did I purposely, did I want to say that, or did I have to say it just to calm her down or something? That's the real question. She followed me limply, automatically, her head cast down. I love you! We were silently sitting in the kitchen, avoiding each other's eyes. What I had said about love, was it really necessary? Some words can't be taken back, and I was sure Himitsu knew full well that I wasn't telling the truth. At least that's my words, meant for someone from what she wanted, but let that be a noble lie. And I was about to tell her the truth here and now. The truth that she had to know, the truth that was currently and more important. Alright, so I took a deep breath, stood up from the chair, and walked from one end of the kitchen to another. Promise you won't interrupt? Himitsu showed no reaction to my words. So it all started about a week ago, with Catherine's return. Yes, but it's not the only and not mainly about her. The same day in the evening, I found a note at my door. It asked me to be careful, said I was in danger because of my parents' work. After these words, she livened up and gave me an uncomprehending look. Wait a second. I rushed to my room, took the note from my cabinet, returned to the kitchen, and gave it to Himitsu. See? It's not a joke. Nico-kun? Wait, don't interrupt. I was very agitated and wasn't looking at her, instead walking to the doors to the garden. But there's more. The next day I got a phone call in Russian and was told to be careful. Then I was followed in the city. And finally yesterday I was interrogated by a Soviet agent, a KGB agent. KGB, understand? I paused. Ichi didn't react, but just kept looking at me. But in addition to surprise, her eyes now also expressed worry and pity. She said my parents didn't die by chance, that it wasn't an accident. They were killed. But why? She uttered in a strained voice. Because of their work for Kobayashi Corporation, for that damn company. And she also warned that I'd be watched by, well, everyone who possibly can. I giggled nervously. Russians, Japanese, probably even Americans. Americans? Why not? They got like a constant beef with the USSR. Although that was just my own speculation. Himitsu once again turned the note in her hands, studying it carefully. Did they write it? No, I don't know. That was probably enough for truth for today. Considering her and Catherine's relationship, it wasn't hard to imagine that if I said the note was from the letter, she'd go for the knife, for a knife. But the call was definitely made by someone from the KGB. That's what the agent said. And what do they want from you? Nothing, as she said. They want to protect me from the Japanese, from Kobayashi Corporation. They said they think I had some kind of information, data passed on by my father. Do you? Himitsu said seriously. No, if I did, I would have given it all to them right away, and kept on living peacefully. A long silence followed. I was desperately waiting for Himitsu's reaction, but she wouldn't say anything, just sat there, her feet on the chair, her arms around her knees, her face hidden behind them. Say something, please. So suddenly, she jumped off of the chair, ran up to me, and embraced me firmly, pushing her whole body against mine. "Nico-kun, forgive me, please!" Himitsu was bawling. "Sunshine, what for? He didn't do anything wrong." "No, I didn't know that something like this happened to you. I was acting so terribly. I was only thinking about myself." "No, not at all." "Nico-kun, I'm sorry." For a good while, we just stood there, wordless, drowning in each other's embrace. Finally, I took Himitsu by the shoulders and gently pushed her away. "The most important thing you should know is that I don't want to involve you. It's just the KGB, the corporation, anything could happen." "I'll help you," she said resolutely. "No, absolutely not." I raised my voice. That KGB woman told me not to show any sign that I might know something. Told me to act normally, and that's what we're going to do, got it? Mitsu pursed her lips unhappily but conceded. "Fine." "But I won't be able to sleep well at night anymore." "Yeah, well, poor Himitsu, I know. She's cute but very worried for me right now." "Yeah, well, I'm not saying that I'm in no danger, but she is right about one thing. The Japanese need something from me, and they'll leave me alone when they realize that I don't have it." "If you think so." Himitsu smiled with some effort. She might have read more romance novels and mysteries, but I wasn't as naive. Unwanted witnesses get disposed of. And when they realized I didn't have the information they needed, they would quickly figure out that I knew a lot of unwanted things about the corporation. And now I really need to get some sleep. "I'm not leaving." She protested. "Remember what I told you? Act normally, don't arouse suspicion." "But Nico-kun." "No buts." For a little while, Himitsu fidgeted in place. "Fine, but be careful." "Careful where? At home? What can I risk of there? Burning myself with hot water or slipping in the bathroom?" I grinned. Himitsu didn't react. She stepped close to me and said, "And also?" She rose on her tiptoes, pulled me close, and gave me a firm kiss. "Ah!" I responded but meekly, feigning surprise. "For luck. Y'all could use some." Himitsu left while I remained in the kitchen, deliriously staring at the note on the table. I could use some sleep, but my exhaustion seemed to have passed the threshold where it unlocked a second wind. Were you outwardly buoyant and full of vigor, but your mind can barely function? I was simply staring into space, my mouth open, having forgotten where I was and what was happening. I know. Aw. A good luck kiss. But the talk with Himitsu left behind a pressing feeling of understatement and uncertainty. Was I really like a cow in a butchery going to wait and see what fate awaited me? And if only it was me alone. But who could help me now? Who knew about my parents' work? Ichinose-san, the answer presented itself. The time for niceties had passed. If need be, I was ready to beat the information out of him. But not today, I'm sleepy. Except nobody picked up the phone. I waited for at least a minute and received nothing but dial tones in response. Perhaps he wasn't home. I called again and again. Finally, an agitated female voice came from the receiver. "Ichinose household. Hello, need to talk to your husband." "My husband?" The woman was clearly nervous. "Who are you?" "I'm an acquaintance. He's not here." "When will he be back?" "He hasn't been home for several days. Do you know where my husband is?" She shouted. I quickly hung up the phone. So they got to him too. Well, that was to be expected. My parents were killed. Then Akira Shinji supposedly died from a heart attack. Ichinose hadn't come back home in several days. Was the corporation really getting rid of witnesses? In that case, maybe it was a good thing I didn't know anything. Anyone who actually didn't seem to live long. And what was the difference between a human and a resource for them? Man. Stretchy. I wanted to sleep so badly that no strength remained to worry about anything else. With effort, I reached my room and fell onto the bed. I dreamed of having broken an arm, that instead of plaster, I was just giving a split that constantly threatened to slip off. It also turned out that my arm was fine. I had been brazenly tricked by the hospital. Then Kyosuke came in and started to laugh loudly at me. And finally, the phone rang. Walked to it and answered, and heard Ichinose-san's voice in the receiver. "Hello, Nikolai, is that you? What are you doing there?" But it wasn't the phone, it was the doorbell. Barely able to find my way around, I dragged myself out of bed and, still half asleep, went on to open the door. Uh-oh. I found a young man wearing a uniform at my doorstep. Are you Anokin Nikolai? Well, yeah. He rummaged through his satchel and pulled out a small envelope. A tiny one, actually. I didn't know they made them that small. Sign here. He extended a clipboard to me with a piece of paper attached to it. Right here. I casually whipped out my scribble and smirked. Should I bring you the ink can too? A personal seal used in Japan in place of a signature. Cool. The courier gave me a weird look, bowed deeply, and bid farewell. Have a good evening. In reality, I always use simple katakana for my signature, which did of course create some problems in the legal sense, but it was generally accepted for a foreigner. Aw, darn it, go back. Katakana. Japanese syllabary, one component of the Japanese writing system, along with hiragana, kanji, and in some cases the Latin script, known as romanji. Katakana is characterized by short straight lines and sharp angles. Cool. The realization of what happened didn't come right away. I returned to my room and only then realized that I didn't usually receive letters, especially ones delivered by a courier. I hastily ripped the envelope open and took out a small folding piece of paper, 3 sentences written on it. Nikolai, we need to talk urgently. Come to the waterfront after midnight and make sure you're not followed. We'll meet on the bridge. Ichinose. I don't believe it. I reread the note several times. What if it was a trap? Though it seemed too complicated for people with that kind of power. For instance, I was home alone right now, and always really. What stopped them from kidnapping or killing me? And the note was delivered right after my call to Ichinose. At midnight. What was even the time? I looked at the clock. It showed a few minutes past 11. It wouldn't take me more than an hour to reach the waterfront. I almost immediately decided that I would go to the meeting, simply trusting my instincts and logic. Now I just had to decide what to do about surveillance. Ichinose didn't even have to warn me. Going out somewhere at almost midnight was definitely not normal for me, but if I were to do it carefully, for some reason I was confident that even if I was being watched, it wasn't the same way they'd watched James Bond or something. From the street, everything would look as if I'd already gone to sleep. I turned off the light, sat down on the bed, waited holding my breath, and listened in to the sounds coming from the street. Nothing. Or well, nothing unusual. The first step is the hardest in situations like this. Then instincts take over. Took a few deep breaths, closed my eyes, and focused on my breathing. Time to go. The door silently opened and immediately closed while I ducked into the garden. I crept to the fence. A few of the planks weren't nailed well and were easy to move aside. A moment later, I was in the alley behind the house. Didn't even have any lampposts, being just a narrow passage between 2 plots of land. Am I gonna die, Mafia babe? A couple of minutes later, I was on my way to the station, trying to avoid my usual route. Ooh, this place looks cool. Only as I approached the station did I look back for the first time. My surveillance had noticed me. They'd follow me to the end, giving them a reason to believe they'd been found. Wouldn't do me any good. If not, then all the better. But I had reason to believe that my plan had worked. At least at this stage. I boarded the train and looked out onto the platform. All I could see were tired Japanese on the way back home after a hard day of work. The Tokyo suburb welcomed me coldly, with a chilly ocean breeze. I was in the shopping district near a port. It was already late, so most of the stores were closed. Why did Ichinose choose this place, I wonder? The bridge in question was visible in the darkness a couple 100 meters away from the station. I reached the place in a few minutes, but at first glance it appeared to be empty. Oh, there he is. Nikolai. I heard the familiar voice, and Ichinose-san son appeared out of the shadows. Were you followed? Whoops. No. So this is, what he looks like. Looks very cool. Very old. Are you sure? He looks pretty calm, which seems strange to me. Yes, absolutely. Good, good. I'm sorry, Nikolai. I'm sorry. What for? I asked with surprise. for my cowardice, for getting cold feet. See what's come out of it." He smiled sadly and immediately continued, "As they say, first they came for the communists." "What are you talking about?" "Thought that if I kept silent, they would leave me alone, but things turned out very differently." Ichinose let out a heavy sigh, then lit up a cigarette. "Thank God I was long prepared for it." "I called your house and your wife said you've been missing for several days." "Yes, that's true. Our phone is wiretapped and I'm in hiding. My wife informed me that someone had called and I sent a courier with a note." "But how did you know it was me?" "Caller display. Heard of it?" "No, to be honest." I didn't even know where to start asking questions. If it had to happen sooner or later, after we had been kicked out of the project, it was inevitable. The project? The project is what your father and I worked on at Kobayashi Corporation. What is this then? He raised his tired eyes to me. I can't explain it in brief, as you wouldn't understand. I'll do my best. After all, my parents died because of this project. I responded confidently. I'd be glad to tell you, but it's not that simple. Each of one of us was responsible for our own part of the research and development. I was a physicist and mostly worked on theoretical calculations. They can have a lot of applications. And what about my father? He was a rocket engineer. Is that so? I drawled, and here I had always thought that he built bridges. And the main problem is that we knew as little about the work of other departments as was possible. It was their way of preserving secrecy. I only talked to your father about work-related matters, and only when it was absolutely necessary. What kind of work-related matters? We didn't understand. He sighed. Ichinose-san, I'm neck deep in this shroot, and I want to get out. I'm not about to back down now. You don't know what you're talking about, Nikolai. Even if I could tell you more, it would greatly endanger you and everyone you hold dear. Everyone you hold dear? Michu's tearful face immediately came to mind. Look at me. Ichinose grinned. I've been long ready that someone would come for me, so I ran at the first sign of danger. Are you ready to do the same? The backstory is revealed. Something like that. Hopefully it will be. No, I don't know. I was definitely right about something, until I figured out what the difference was between a resource and a human. But my father's work wasn't the only question on my agenda tonight. Do you know someone with the surname Winters, an American? Ichinose thought for a moment. Who is that? How are you connected? Do you know her or not? I've heard the name Winters, but I think it belonged to an adult woman. And how is she connected to your project? I don't think she has any direct connection to the scientific part of the project, but she could be representing the American side. American? What American side, Ichinose-san? A terrible guess struck me. Do you think it was the Japanese working on the project? I didn't think anything. Responded rudely. And does this Mrs. Winters have any connection to the death of my parents? Oh, I read that as him. Whoops. He frowned and looked at me carefully over his glasses, talking as if they were killed. Weren't they? Nikolai, He cut himself off mid-sentence, let out a heavy sigh, and lowered his eyes. I have no proof, but I suspected that the accident wasn't a coincidence. I couldn't tell you since it was just a guess of mine. It doesn't matter anymore, Ichinose-san. What about Mrs. Winters? I don't think so, no. But you aren't sure? Nikolai, why are you so interested in this woman? I'm telling you, I've never even seen her. Just heard the name. It's a very personal matter. Well, I hope you know what you're doing. So Catherine's mother was somehow involved in all of this. But she wasn't to blame for my parents' death. That is, if I were to believe Ichinose, who didn't really know much himself. But how was all this connected to Catherine's note? Did that mean she knew something too? My entire life was a lie in a theater of the absurd. My family matters were known to everyone but myself. Ichinose-san, everything is not that. I need time to digest it all. I understand. By the way... He sighed and turned away, clearly bracing himself. I haven't told you everything about Akira Shinji. He's not dead. I looked at him with a silent question on my face. At the time, it seemed to me that I was doing the right thing by not telling you the entire truth. Not to mention your phone is wiretapped the same as mine. It was taken by people from the corporation, so in a sense, he may as well be dead. Oh no. And this Akira Shinji? Who was he? Ooh, now he was a big deal in the project and most likely knew much more than I. Then we need to find him. That won't work. It's Kobayashi Corporation, remember? He could be anywhere. Ichinose paused, then continued in a lower voice. He may very well not be alive anymore. But then, what should we do next? We? He gave me a somehow fatherly look and said, I plan to keep hiding from the corporation, and you better keep far away from it at all. Better yet, return to the Union if you can. I can't. I can't abandon Himitsu. Not until I was sure that she wasn't involved in any of this. That she wasn't in danger. In that case, I can only remind you to be as careful as possible. I've heard that a little too often lately. Perhaps the corporation will leave you alone when they realize you have nothing to offer. After all, you have no direct connection to the project. Ichinose-san, thank you so much. You don't need to thank me. I did what was right. Will we meet again? He looked annoyed, but only for a moment. Here. He handed me a small piece of paper with a telephone number written on it. Memorize, then throw away or burn the paper. Anything so long as you don't keep it. This is the phone number of my nephew. You'll need to ask if Agawa-san is home. You'll be told that if you got the wrong number, and I'll find a way to get in contact with you. Ichinose-san, whatever happens, thank you so much. I bowed deeply. Alright, enough now. He grinned. Be careful on your way home. And then he disappeared into the gloom of the Tokyo waterfront. Jeez. The next train home would only come early in the morning, so I found a phone and booth and called a taxi. The taxi was bombed and I'm dead. Yay! The car was making its way through the streets of the sleeping metropolis at a steady pace. I was trying to digest everything Ichinose had told me. With the volume of information, the agitation, the lack of sleep made my brain incapable of anything but recalling separate phases from our conversation over and over again. Each one was important in and of itself, but made no sense when put together with the others. I got out of the taxi several blocks away from my house, and returned the same way, through the alleyway and the hole in the fence. I desperately needed to sleep. Those few hours in the afternoon hadn't helped me at all, and I felt totally beat. The house was dark and quiet, and so was the street. The time of night is the most serene and most mysterious at the same time. My inflamed imagination started to project jumping shadows into the corners and rustling noises into the kitchen. Tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow will be better. I muttered, my head hidden under the blanket. Mafia Bay, will tomorrow be better? Loading. The 15th. Tomorrow's not better. Nico-kun! Maybe. Hopefully. Someone was calling me, sounding as if from another world. Nico-kun! The voice grew louder, more confident. Nico-kun, you need to get up. You said you should. Said? What did I say? Nico-kun! Get the F up! Get up! I strained and managed to open my eyes, only to see Himitsu sitting on my bed. What's the time? Late enough to not get to school in time. She looked to be in a sullen mood and wasn't even trying to hide it. You're back, Ekin Rat. You learned a lot of, mysterious things are happening right now with the project. What kind of project? I don't even know yet. Felt a bit better than yesterday, even though I had just woken up. Good morning. Still, I found it really hard to stand up from my bed. Himitsu remained seated, her head down. Yesterday I decided to stop lying to her, at least when it came to important things. But last night's talk with Ichinose had posed even more questions. Even if I hadn't found out about this project and the Kobayashi Corporation's dark dealings, I would have still been in danger. But the involvement of Catherine's mother radically altered the situation. Perhaps Katya herself was in on it. Do you want breakfast? Himitsu asked. Yes, thank you. Naturally, some awkwardness and even tension remained between us after yesterday. Himitsu was cooking up something in the kitchen while I was showering, pouring as much cold water over myself as possible. Ichinose-san had said that it'd make the most sense to me to return to the USSR. After all, I still had some relatives there, even if I hadn't spoken to them in a long while. But if the KGB found me in Japan, they would absolutely be able to reach me in the Union. Plus, I couldn't simply abandon everything here. But would the living in fear and endless anticipation of calamity be any better? For the first time ever, I had a clear realization that there was someone to blame for my parents' death. Some very specific people with names and surnames, positions and bank accounts, maybe even families and children of their own. I can no longer think that it was just an unfortunate accident, no. It had been meticulously planned and those responsible had to suffer retribution. Except I wasn't sure I could deliver it alone. The breakfast turned out to be quite maigre, not at all Himitsu's style. I was eating, staring at my plate, and she was silently looking at me. What? I asked, unable to bear her silent stare anymore. Nothing, I'm just looking. Yeah, right. Nico-kun, what are you going to do next? I found it weird that she said you, not we. It even made me a bit upset. Soon after I finish, we go to school. You know what I'm talking about. I put the chopsticks aside and sighed. We already discussed this yesterday. We will keep our heads down and attract no attention. Do you think this is going to end that easily? I don't know. I don't have much control over it. Relying on blind chance again. What else do you propose we do? If you have any ideas, I'd be happy to hear them. Once again, I was getting worked up and venting my frustrations on Himitsu. It was a foul thing to do, especially after everything that happened between us lately. Sorry, I didn't really mean to say it like that. It's not the words that matter. Then what? I forced out a smile, but she didn't react. Thought about it the whole night. We need to talk to someone, ask for help. Perhaps she was right. But for some reason, I still saw the Japanese police forces as more or less Kenpeitai. Kenpeitai? Known as the Kenpeitai, were the military police arm of the Imperial Japanese Army from 1881 to 1943, and was also served as a secret police force. Its motto was the National Gendarmerie of France. Cool. It was obvious to me that they would first and foremost defend the interests of their corporation, not some gaijins. For a capitalist country like Japan, in this particular case, the interests of Kobayashi Corporation were pretty much the interests of the nation itself. Not to mention that Soviet intelligence was involved in this too. Soviet intelligence that had contacted me directly. I doubted the police would spend such effort figuring things out before taking me in as a spy. If only it were that simple. I'm not Japanese, understand? Talk to the KGB, or what do you think the shoes are the people you want me to talk to? But you didn't do anything wrong. What's wrong and who's guilty here depend on your point of view. In Kobayashi Corporation's case, I'm guilty of having the information they believe I have. To the Russians, I'm guilty of living in Japan in the first place and not working for them. Well, and to the Japanese, I'm probably guilty of the same thing as my parents. The same thing that cost them their lives. Nico-kun, sorry! Are you apologizing for Kobayashi Corporation or Japan in general? No, but they... Who are they? And what would we accuse them of? Them who? They have neither a name nor a face, and the individual people who carry out orders are just pawns. They're easily replaceable and can always be written off if one screws up. Himitsu grew even sadder. Nico-kun, I'm scared! Me too. Had I always been so prone to fatalism? After finishing breakfast, we sat there for quite a while, each occupying by their own thoughts. Or perhaps the same thoughts. Well, let's go, or we'll really be late. Himitsu just nodded, stood up from the table, and left for the hallway without clearing away the dishes. As usual, Tokyo didn't care one bit about the problems of its inhabitants, in general or in particular. Just a couple days ago, it had seemed to me that we were about to get a proper autumn, with rains, cold wind, and chilly air. But for some reason, today was warm and sunny just like in summer. The weather mocked me, and made it clear that my problems didn't concern it one bit. You can't just do that, I explained, not addressing anyone in particular, except maybe the clear blue sky. Nico-kun? Himitsu stopped and looked into my eyes agitatedly. Listen, how about we try to live like normal after all? I said unexpected, not even to myself. Constantly sewing in our anxiety, waiting for something bad to happen. We can't just live like that. The worst that's happened so far was my conversation with that KGB woman. Not the most pleasant moment of my life, but it wasn't fatal either. What about the note? God, her and that note. Shouldn't have told Himitsu about it in the first place. Yeah, and the note. Just imagine we don't know anything about any of it. That was the case just a week ago. Wasn't sure who I was trying to calm down, her or myself. For the first time today, Himitsu smiled. Alright, I'll do my best. That's the spirit. I grinned. Now we run. I grabbed her by the hand and rushed to school. Nico-kun! Alright guys, I think at this point, now would be a good time to save the game. And we'll continue this next time. Man, I thought this was about love, money, and rock and roll. Now it just feels like there's a threat over my head. Each and every second of the day or whatever. Let's see the updated gallery now. We got some new songs here. Not all of them yet, but still a lot more. Got some more backgrounds. Cool. And some more CGs. Still missing a lot, of course. But yeah, thank you for stopping by, guys. Hope you had a good time. This game is still very interesting, and we'll see more tomorrow. Tonight will be Dragon Quest Builders, so look forward to that. Take care, guys. Bye!